The most powerful force in the Empire is the Sky Knights. This is the place where only the most talented knights and wizards can enter. A place where members are ranked according to a strict skill-based system. Age, gender, status, all are meaningless, as the knights and wizards are judged by their abilities. Among the knights and wizards, the best 10 are bestowed the title of Imperial Knight. In the current generation, there is a man who is the strongest of all time. His name is Senok Ivan Black Knight, the rank 1 leader of the Imperial Knights and captain of the Sky Knights. Despite being the only duke in the Empire, he is the youngest to ever become captain. Aspen Swar is the lieutenant of the Knights, the rank 2. Everyone disliked her, despite her rank, because of her ugly appearance. Her face stained with what most saw as a hideous scar. She was told that she will not be allowed to take the front row in the upcoming victory ceremony, and she protested that everyone except the captain competed for the role, of which she became the winner. Her boss explained that she should not take the front because of the scar on her face, and that Senok would be more suitable. For knights, the dignity of the royal family must be maintained, and there's nothing he could do about it, since it's already been decided. Davian Charest, rank 6, walked up to Espen, condescendingly saying he was surprised to hear that she lost her place in the victory ceremony, in spite of her bravery and victory against the other knights, and that Senok would take her place perfectly. This made her think back to when she was a child. She lost her family in a fire, incited by an unknown culprit. After that incident, she discovered that she had a great talent for swordsmanship, and wondered if she had been acknowledged by everyone back then. Would she have been treated differently now? The only reason why she was overshadowed despite being talented is because of Senok, who happened to be a wall she could never surpass. She really hated him, and wished that she could have an opportunity to prove herself against his abilities. She wondered how a man could be so perfect, and this caused her despair. But she didn't want to live with this inferiority complex for the rest of her life. The story of the Sky Knights being ranked strictly by their abilities was now a thing of the past. Most of the powers now reside in the hands of the nobles. Espen thought that it would only be a matter of time before this honorable place gets rotten, as the ignorance of the nobles gets stronger. Remembering she didn't have any family members or relatives, day after day, she's been thinking about the meaning of life, feeling she had no place here any longer, and decided to have a duel with the captain before taking her leave. She felt she could put an end to her hatred through swordplay. Senok asked if she was sure she really wanted to have a duel with him. She was surprised to see him so close to her. It was raining outside the training hall, so he asked if she wanted to postpone the duel. She responded that she didn't hate the rain, and she appreciated him for being punctual. Then, the duel began. As he charges at her, she decides to focus on his wrists, but he overpowers her and asks her to admit defeat. However, Espen decides to calm down and think positively. This was her last chance to have a duel with him. She believed that she could beat the captain. Senok was a man she really liked. He was a figure she had always respected, but the inferiority complex that she had developed because of the hatred of many people towards her had stopped her from seeing his kindness. She focused on Senok's wrist and aimed for a cut on his side. Her sword suddenly sparked with red lightning, and she got Senok on his knees. She pointed her sword at him and asked if he blamed the weather. The captain stood up and walked away from the seemingly triumphant Espen, who was happy to have gotten a win out of the 100 duels she had with him. She placed her hand on the part of her shoulder where she had been struck. As the pain ached, she felt there was no point in going anywhere, because she had no family to welcome her home. She sees a rabbit walking aimlessly on the road as the carriage with the horse was approaching, about to run it over, and decides to dive in to cover the rabbit amidst a violent collision with the horse and carriage. The rider halted and drew closer with the aim of checking if Espen was alive or dead. She was satisfied with the victory as a knight, but she felt unhappy because her life was so short. What she didn't know was that death could give her a new life. Espen found herself lying down in the woods. She was thirsty, so she walked up to get some water and was shocked to see that she had a young face and body. She lamented over the loss of her well-trained body, her honor, and strength as a knight, as she felt noticeably slower. Then, the small rabbit from before asked if she had come to her senses. But wait, this was no rabbit, but instead a creature that identified himself as Lepus, king of the sacred beasts. She grabbed him and asked what he had done to her. He explained she died when the carriage crashed into her, and that he gave her a new body, adding that she was destined to die on that day. Regardless of whatever action she would have taken, the body he gave Espen would only disappear if he stopped supplying it with power. And he asked if she would like to continue living. Espen replied that she didn't want to die, but instead live a quiet and peaceful life. He'd only agree to her request if she fulfills his. Originally, Lepus ruled over the sacred beasts from a different dimension, but one day, a hole was drilled between these dimensions, and the beasts escaped. Lepus tells her she can only keep her body if she helps him recapture them. They've been brought back 18 years into the past. Espen was thinking about how she was going to live in her new world when Lepus directs her to a nearby village. She thought about how she would have to live with a supernatural rabbit and found it difficult to believe she was sent back in time. She then hears a young boy crying in the forest, and finding him, she thought he looked so much like the captain she knew before she died, but then disregarded that idea. Her captain was not the type to be meek or emotional. She told the young boy to stop crying, but admittedly, she was not good with kids. She asked Lepus to do something, but apparently, the king of beasts was only visible to her. We then learned the boy is being bullied by another group of boys his age, who were also being trained under the same sword teacher. The young boy explained his bully is a talented swordsman and his teacher's precious student. His teacher didn't care about him since he was too scared to wield swords. Espen remembered that there were guys like the bullies during her time in the Knight's Order. Those guys would pick on weak people and commoners, deliberately chastising them. But as the vice captain, she would never allow any act of injustice to go unpunished, and that was the reason why the high-ranking nobles hated her. She said the jerk who hit him is to be blamed, and he needed to fight back. The boy thanked her for the advice, but said that it was impossible for him to fight back. That's when the bullies arrived. Lepus tells Espen to prepare for a fight, but she wondered how she'd be able to fight in her tiny and fragile form. The young boy's bullies abused him, and said their teacher gave them permission to beat him up. Espen assumed that the young boy must be a knight candidate, so she stood up to protect him. She told the bullies they should fight with him one-on-one, since it's a disgrace for a knight to fight an opponent who has lost their will, and that they're cowards, not befitting of the knight title. "What are you saying, you damn bitch?" one of the bullies said roughly, as another went to strike. She wondered how on earth a kid could say such words. She struck so fiercely with the stick in her hand, she nearly left a crater in the ground. She defeated the bullies with much ease, only using a stick to smack all three of them. And when they left, they gave the typical losing villain lines, vowing revenge against Espen and the young boy. She was surprised that her body could move so swiftly, and Lepus started tooting his own horn, telling her, "This one gave you the best body." Then she turned to the boy, and she asked if he was all right. The boy said he was fine, and he thanked Espen for saving him. He thought she was so cool because he'd never seen his bullies beaten before. For compensation, Espen asked for a place to stay, leaving the boy wondering if she got kicked out of her house. Just like I'd have to kick you for not liking the video and subscribing to my channel. You don't have a YouTube account? You better make one and subscribe to me, because here on my Shoujo Weekly, you'll find tons of long stories in the shoujo genre to listen to keep all the bad thoughts away. Looking for more manhwa? I got a playlist for that. Looking for anime? Check out my completed series playlist. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy. Anyways, Espen and the boy arrived at a bungalow. She could see that the simplicity of the house paled in comparison to the boy's clothes. But she was more surprised that the maid referred to the boy as young master. After a short time, different kinds of delicacies were set before them. The boy thanked Espen for helping him, but she told him she was only able to help him this time, and that the bullies might come against him in the future. Espen asked about the boy's name, and she was surprised to hear him say, Senok, Black Knight. At first, the name sounded familiar, but soon, she was shocked to realize that the boy bears the same name as the captain of the Sky Knights. No, he is the captain of the Sky Knights. She couldn't believe that Captain Senok was so timid as a child. Like a little puppy, she found it difficult to believe that she had gone back to an era where the captain of the Knights was completely different. She then began having thoughts of finding her original self, but Lepus warned her to never try searching for her original body, because both her original body and this new one shared the same soul. And if they were to meet, her current soul would erase from this dimension. He promised to grant all her wishes, if only she could find the sacred beasts. Regardless, Espen was happy that since she had come to have a new life, she wasn't being hated or scorned by anybody. She decides to inquire more on the given quest and asks Lepus about the sacred beasts. Sacred beasts are creatures that have enormous power, ranking from village level to wiping out entire countries. There is a dimension in which Lepus gathered and controlled the most dangerous of the beasts. And while he was in charge of that dimension, he couldn't use his powers much here because this dimension constrains him. Thus, he needed Espen's help. The next day, she met Senok at the manor and asked if he was taking night training lessons. The owner of the manor, Count Iset, is apparently a vassal of Duke Black Knight, Senok's father. Being a vassal with no power though, he abandoned Senok at the manor. Senok asked if Espen would like to see the training ground, so she decided to take a look around and hopefully gather information about the sacred beasts. Espen and Senok went to a familiar place, and they saw the guys that bullied him the previous day, but they ran away as soon as they saw Espen. She then asked Senok for a favor one more time, because she had nowhere to stay. Senok replied that she could stay with him for as long as she wished, which surprised her. But she was more surprised that Senok didn't ask questions about her identity. She tells him her name is Pin, and that she'll help him with the bullies as payment for letting her stay with him. Tears of joy flowed down from Senok's eyes. No one has ever offered to help him. Espen remembered that the captain of the knights in her past life was cold and aloof, but had always given her kind words. She remembered when the captain visited her when she was injured and told her that she'd been doing well and to speak up when she needed any help. At that time, she ignored the captain because she hated him, but always remembered his words. It's funny how this time, she's able to pat the head of her crying little captain. Remembering that the same person who gave head pats to her was him in her previous life, gave her some mixed feelings. She then noticed this was the training ground for swordsmanship, and joked about enrolling to learn as well. She sensed that it wouldn't be difficult to protect Senok from the sidelines, but the fact that he could not wield a sword was a mystery to her. She thought there must be something going on. Senok told Aspen his father told him to stay close to the manor. Aspen then asked if he would like to go around the town with her, since she wanted to get more information about the sacred beasts. She held his hand, looking him straight in the eyes, telling him that if no one cared about him, all he had to do was walk out and meet new people who did. She didn't want to get too close to him, but did all she could in order to repay his kind deeds. She flashes back to her past. She wished she hadn't recalled that time he told her she was truly righteous. And Senok wondered if something was wrong. While they were speaking, Lepus raises an alarm, telling Aspen that there is an emergency. He could sense the energy of a sacred beast in town. So, she tries to leave, but Senok tells her he'll be meeting with his instructor very soon. Aspen asked if she could come along, but Senok said that outsiders would not be able to meet with the instructor easily, since there were a lot of people coming from far away to learn from him. He decided he was going to ask whether he needed to attend the training or not, because he wanted to go along with her. Aspen was surprised at what Senok said, and found it difficult to adapt to his strangely innocent behavior. Senok noticed the look on Aspen's face. He asked if he was burdening her. He wanted to know if she liked him. She replied that she was just thinking about something else, then told him not to worry about anything, and that she didn't hate him. She decided to head out into town, and come back to see Senok at night. She asked Lepus about the location of the sacred beast. Lepus gave her several directions, which were completely useless, as anywhere a sacred beast had been would leave a residual energy trail. Lepus explained the power of a sacred beast is what humans refer to as miracles. Even with snow beginning to fall on a bright, sunny day, the residents of the town didn't even look surprised. Aspen walked towards a young man, asking if snow usually fell this time of year. The man could tell she was a visitor, and explained that snowfall was a phenomenon that had been happening in their region lately. It just suddenly snowed at odd times more recently. Mages arrived from the capital and declared there was no problem. But the most amazing thing was that there was nothing dangerous about this snow. He had Aspen taste it, and she was surprised that the flakes were salty. The man said the first time it snowed, however, it tasted sweet. Whenever the snow fell, the kids loved it. Lepus explained that there's a sacred beast named Snow Weaver, who produced the ice according to his emotions. Whenever he's happy, the ice tastes sweet. Sad, the ice tastes salty. But whenever he's angry, the ice is hot. She asked if the sacred creature liked or hated anything. Lepus answered that Snow liked human food, but wasn't really sure what else Snow liked in detail. Lepus felt a faint aura coming from the alley. So Aspen approached, seeing a young boy surrounded by 2 robbers who were trying to mug him for money. The boy told him they'd regret it and started lighting up his magic, defeating them quickly. Then, Aspen arrived to finish one sneaking up on him. The mage's opponents were defeated before Aspen arrived at the scene. She asked for the boy's name, and so he told her his name was Cade, and that he was a magician. Aspen remembered that the mages used magical powers, and they belonged to the Sky Knights in her former timeline. The Sky Knights is an association of knights with few magicians. The mages who joined the Sky Knights wandered or joined the towers. Aspen lied to Cade, saying that she was just meeting a magician for the first time, and she was curious because of that. They exchanged introductions. With the help of his magic, he picked up the stick she used and wondered if she was a little too young to be wielding it like a weapon. He then told her he's been working with his master, the Grand Wizard. Then, her memory recalled this boy to be Cade Raccoon, the future Grand Wizard. When she assumed the post of vice captain, the emperor of the empire collapsed due to an unknown magic disease. At that time, the magician Cade appeared, and he played a crucial part in the emperor's recovery with his magic. After the emperor's recovery, Cade suddenly disappeared, and no matter how hard the emperor searched, they could never find him. She was even tasked at some point to search for him. She thought it would be good for her to make friends with Cade, and asked him about his reason for being in town. Cade responded that he was in town to collect some special treasures, like a harp that could create waves, or a rock that could turn into food, or even a treasure that could travel through time. This last statement alarmed Aspen. Cade said that he was in town because it suddenly snowed. Then suddenly, Lephis announced the arrival of Snowweaver, and Aspen wondered if this cute little boy was really a sacred beast. Snowweaver ran away, so Aspen and Lephis chased after him. Cade called out to Aspen, telling her he wanted to meet again. At the same time, at the Knight's training center, the 3 bullies surrounded Senok. They made fun of him because he couldn't even use a wooden sword. One of the bullies said that he was going to break his legs. Since Aspen wasn't around, Senok tried to hold out his wooden sword. He summoned courage amidst the loud laughter of the bullies, who called him stupid, and swung the wooden sword, much to their surprise. Senok suddenly fell over, and the leader of the bullies ordered his subordinates to deal with him. Aspen and Lephis continued to look for Snowweaver. Lephis told her that Snowweaver was hiding because he hated him. Aspen asked why, but Lephis replied he had no idea, which really pissed her off. At least knowing that Snowweaver was in town, and she would have to catch up with him, she felt like she needed a proper sword, like the one she had in her previous life. But she was also pretty sure her current tiny body wouldn't be able to handle it. She went back to meet Senok, who had been beaten by the bullies. Senok grabbed Aspen's sleeve, and with tears in his eyes, he told her that he wanted to be strong. She knew he was an incredible knight. He was the most talented knight in the whole empire. His enemies saw him as a nightmare in their dreams, but he was far from that reality now. She asked Senok about his reason for desiring to be strong. Was it to defeat his bullies? To take revenge? And told them to wipe his tears, because he was going to become strong sooner or later. And concluded that this Senok was different from the one in her original timeline. Aspen did not find the sternness, firmness, or rigidity of the captain in him. She said that she wanted to help him, but she also needed his help. She was going to make him strong, and she told him not to go for training, because she was going to be his teacher. Aspen then asked if they could get something to eat. During mealtime, she described the Snowweaver as a kid with white curly hair and horns, and wearing trousers. Senok tried drawing a depiction of him based on her description, but the image he drew ended up pretty funny. She then asked Senok about his reason for living in this secluded place instead of a castle. Senok explained that his family's castle was so cold and hard to bear. The people in the castle would torment him to the point that he would wonder how long he'd be able to survive. If he continued to live as this weak person, he was afraid of becoming a useless human being. Aspen realized that there were more people that needed to drink a cup of her wrath. Even though she could help him now, and there was no way that she and the future captain would have the same relationship in the future, she reasoned that she would be able to repay Senok for his kindness in feeding her and giving her a place to sleep. She told him that they should both go and play, and also find something delicious to eat. It wouldn't be bad for Senok to rest for a day before training, because missing one day wouldn't make him weak. We see Snowweaver walking along the road as he contemplates his master Lephis as evil. He thought about the encounter he had with Aspen, and it was just difficult for him to let go of that experience. It was snowing heavily, and unexpectedly, some people were looking for explanations to the occurrences in town. The Lord was expected to take action, since the snow had covered the whole town during the summer. The imperial family said that magicians would be coming to examine the whole situation, and people were advised to wait a little bit. Aspen remembered that Lephis said the snow tasted different, depending on Snowweaver's emotions. At that moment, she tasted the snow, and it was spicy and bitter. Lephis said that Snowweaver was much more enraged, and that the bitterness of the snow represented Snowweaver's deep sorrow. Aspen asked about what Lephis thought could be Snowweaver's reason for cursing him, and Lephis assumed Snowweaver was just a fickle kid. Aspen nearly fell to the icy ground, but Senok grabbed her hand, and he drew her to himself in what turned out to be a lovely embrace. And she found his strength to be very impressive. This got his heart beating so rapidly, he backed away, face flush red. Aspen perceived that Senok's physical abilities were good, despite the fact that it was difficult for him to use a sword. With this snow, the city's food supply was getting destroyed. She felt they needed to put an end to this. She then asked if Lephis could show himself to other people, and he definitely could. So, she had him show himself to Senok, who was completely surprised to see the cute sacred beast. Aspen explained Lephis was the reason she was looking for Snowweaver in the town. And even with her telling Senok not to be scared of Lephis, Lephis couldn't help but feel there was something dangerous with Senok's obsessive traits. With Senok easily accepting Aspen's explanation about sacred beasts, she couldn't help but worry about his safety. Elsewhere, Snowweaver spotted a mother and daughter playing in snow. He thought of Lephis and got angry that the master of beasts was nothing like a parent. Lephis even told Snowweaver he wasn't his parent, so he wouldn't delude himself. Snowweaver then decided to attack the family out of anger, but Aspen narrowly saved the two. As the family gets set down happy and safe, Snowweaver sees Lephis and decides to go on the attack. But Aspen deflects his ice magic with quick swipes of her stick. The ice shards aimed at Senok next, so she rushed over to protect him, but at the cost of her stick finally cracking. Senok would point her towards some swords on a nearby table, and slashing the rest of the shards with a simple brandishing of the blade. Lephis went, "Oh ho, just as I thought. I chose the right human." Snowweaver and Senok were baffled by her display. As it was expected, Senok and Aspen cornered Snowweaver. A barrel was beside Senok, so he threw it at the beast. Aspen then kicked him down, and he transformed into a cute little creature like Lephis. Aspen picked up Snowweaver and tied him up with a rope. As she was thinking about the reason for his sudden transformation, Lephis explained that sacred beasts reverted to their original form whenever they experienced a shock. She asked why he always looked like a steam bun then, but he adamantly disagreed. With Snowweaver staring angrily, it started to snow heavily. Lephis warned Snowweaver to stop using his powers excessively, or he might wipe out of existence and even fade away. "It doesn't matter if I disappear or not. You wouldn't care about me anyway," Snowweaver screamed as he undid his bindings. With a spark from his eye, he sliced Aspen's cheek, something that deeply angered Senok. Snowweaver then pushed Aspen and ran away. Senok appeared on top of Aspen, trying to see if she was alright. She asked if Snowweaver had escaped, and thanked Senok for helping her earlier, telling him he was amazing. Senok got on one knee, asking Aspen if he was useful, and she told him he was, making him beam with happiness. The more she looked at Senok, the more the captain's image faded away. As she called Senok her best friend, Lephis spoke ominous words about the boy's foreboding future. Senok was destined for misfortune. A week later, the snow continued to fall, except more seriously than before, and Snowweaver was nowhere to be found. Most of the townsfolk have adapted, but not everyone was happy having snow at odd times. Many people were angry with the whole situation. Aspen thought the royal knights might arrive soon, with no chance of forgiving the perpetrator. She questioned once again if Lephis knew about the reason why Snowweaver was destructive in nature. He again replied he had no idea, and plopped himself onto her head. He explained beasts had no concept of family, yet Snowweaver had always been obsessed with being human, even begging Lephis at times for parental embrace. Perhaps it was because Lephis was the one who found Snowweaver and took him back to their dimension that it caused him to become this way. Regardless, Lephis had no understanding of the concept of parenthood. Aspen worried that Snowweaver would be arrested as soon as a wizard from the Imperial Palace arrived. She didn't know how beasts would be treated, thinking that Snowweaver might be used as an experiment or be killed instantly. She asked Lephis if he'd really be okay with that. To this, he kept quiet. She couldn't tell what he was thinking by his expression. She sighed. Heading back to where Senok was waiting, he lit up seeing her. They had split up earlier to look for Snowweaver, and he had nothing on his end. Seeing the sword on his belt, she thought about how he confessed that holding a sword was scary and difficult for him. She smiled. assuring him he'd get used to holding a sword one day. She took a closer look at Senok and could see he was so cute and lovely, but she reminded herself that she was admiring somebody who was a captain in her former world. She couldn't deny the fact that she now saw two personalities in the person of the young Senok. She moved closer to him and patted his head. She was convinced that this Senok was kind. Aspen and Senok went around asking people if they had seen a little kid with white hair. A woman said the person they were looking for was in the alley. Senok and Aspen rushed over, finding someone in the similitude of Snowweaver. Aspen charged towards the person with a furious slash, but as the person turned his face, she saw a barrier deflect her attack. Her jaw dropped. Alas, it was Cade the magician. She was going to fall, but he gently floated her down. Soon after, she apologized for her ambush. He laughed, saying that Aspen didn't look like the type to suddenly attack others. She explained they were actually looking for Snowweaver, who was about their age, and Cade had a similar complexion. Cade replied that the alley was quite dark, so he understood, but he now wanted to know more about the boy that was with her. She introduced Senok as her friend, and while she claimed he was shy, Senok shot Cade a deadly glare. Cade didn't offer to help, and she was grateful for his kind gesture. Aspen asked if Cade had heard of the sacred beasts, and Cade asked if Aspen was talking about the creatures from another dimension. His teacher once taught him that the world was divided into different planes of existence, so he supposed there had to be one where these beasts existed. He sometimes knew creatures from other worlds could appear as well as humans from different time periods, adding that the divine beast was still a concept that a sorcerer found difficult to understand. He questioned how she could know about them. As she was trying to explain Snowweaver was one of these beasts, they heard some men shouting to go after a strange kid. Aspen told them they had to go quickly. Peeking around the corner, they noticed Count Iset's knights, probably sent to deal with the source of the ongoing snow. Aspen then decided to tail the knights, since they might have better resources to find Snowweaver. The knights split into two directions, so Cade went one direction himself, while Aspen and Senok went the other. Cade casted a trace spell on Aspen, so he would be able to send a magic signal in case he found the horned boy on his side. As they followed the knights, it turned out they also lost the trail of the sacred beast. It seemed that Snowweaver used his powers to avoid being noticed. With Snowweaver thinking he's gotten away, he suddenly felt chills and turned in horror to see Aspen triumphantly say, "You're dead." Snowweaver made a run for it, but Aspen flipped over to the front of him, teasing that she wasn't going to let him go this time. Snowweaver was so determined to escape, he began to conjure a ginormous ice crystal. Aspen was worried that if it crashed, it'd cause too much attention, attract the knights, and Snowweaver would be taken away for life. She groaned, deciding to put her life on the line. As the crystal fell upon her, she split it with her sword to prevent it from crashing. She then grabbed Snowweaver, throwing him to the ground, then pointed her blade at him. She wasn't going to let her guard down anymore. And Snowweaver in turn said he was going to kill her, even if it took every last bit of strength he had. She questioned why he hated her so much, but before they could talk, Senok shouted the knights were coming. As the loud footsteps drew closer, Cade appeared floating above, offering his help. He casted a barrier on the ground, and this made it impossible for the knights to see or hear them, meaning Aspen didn't have to hold back. With her strongest sword aura technique displayed, Cade thought no one of this current era had powers like her. He thought Pin must be a genius. Soon after, Snowweaver was tied up, and Aspen admitted that it had been a long time since she's been able to warm up like this. She felt good. Senok thought they would need to get down a tarp to capture Snowweaver. Up to that point, he had always thought of swords as scary weapons used by scary people, like his father. But he realized that the sword was not just a terrible and cruel thing, but could also be extremely beautiful. He wanted to be just like Pin. Aspen asked if Senok was alright, and he replied he was grateful he was able to use a sword. For the first time, he felt no fear and no pain, and told her she was the best. This caused her to blush, remembering her former captain who had said the same thing, the man who had once told her to be proud of herself, and that only she was in his heart. Aspen remembered him saying, "You should have more confidence in yourself as my vice captain." A repressed memory of him walking away after praising her. She wondered how she could have forgotten. Cade told them they had to leave, so they headed somewhere more secluded. Snowweaver told them, "I have nothing to say to a stupid human," being interrogated by Aspen. Aspen then gave Senok a paddle he could use to whack Snowweaver in case he ran. She didn't want Snowweaver to run away again after all that she had done to capture him. Lephis yawned watching the whole event. He was the one who requested she gather all the divine beasts, but she wondered why he was keeping so quiet. Snowweaver once again told Aspen to kill him, but she didn't care what he thought. She asked Lephis if he wanted Snowweaver to die. Snow closed his eyes, thinking Lephis was obviously going to say yes. However, the Master of Beasts retorted, "You may not! Snowweaver belongs to my dimension!" Then, she asked what they should do if he ran away, and Lephis responded, they just have to catch him again. This left Snowweaver perplexed. He thought Lephis hated him. However, Lephis explained he didn't hate him at all. This is when Snowweaver finally understood Lephis must really care about him, and Aspen explained that even though she hasn't known Lephis for long, Lephis definitely cared about him, just in his own way. This caused Snowweaver to cry and jump into Aspen's arms in his fluffy beast form. And with the dust settled, Cade wanted to know more about Lephis. A week later, since there was no snow, people stopped worrying about trying to find the cause. It seemed like all the problems had been solved, and finally, Aspen began swordsmanship training with Senok. Since Senok had a fear of swords, Aspen planned to wean him into getting used to wielding. Snowweaver, Lephis, and Aspen became close friends. And while the maid was excited to see Senok have so many, all the while, Snowweaver and Lephis called Senok a weakling for constantly getting knocked down during training. Cade asked if Lephis was the divine beast that asked for her help, and her reason for staying at Senok's place while she was looking for the rest. Hearing her answer she had no place of her own, Cade offered his place and his magic skill to help search for beasts. He said that she would also get the help of his teacher without needing to give too much information, causing Aspen to light up at the offer. She thought the idea sounded good, but Senok cried, begging her to stay with him, and she got steamy while blushing, telling herself over and over that he was just her captain, nothing more. Luckily for Senok, she did promise to help him in return for letting her stay. Wondering where the next beast was? We see a small silhouette mentioning the area smelled like Snowweaver. The next day, Aspen learned from Cade that a wizard was coming to town at the request of the Count. Even though the snow stopped, a wizard from the Sky Guard was being sent to conduct an investigation, which worried Aspen. Cade told Aspen to stop worrying about the whole situation, and that things would be fine, as long as they didn't find out that the snow was a result of a divine beast. Figuring something was bothering her, Weavy offered to get whoever was causing her trouble with his ice, and she wobbled back from all the stress he was causing her. So badly, Senok would fan to cool her down. Snowweaver, now referred by them as Weavy, asked if he could be of help, and Aspen wanted any details he had about the other beasts. Weavy replied that when he opened his eyes to the world, he saw two others. One who went to look for a big bolt of lightning, while the other went to look for a flower. He was the only one left behind, so he wandered around until he came to the city because he felt Lephis's energy. Aspen was at a loss, with no further details on where to look. Elsewhere, a servant went to meet County Set, the lord of the estate, who, as a reminder, was left in charge of Senok to make him useful for a reward from Senok's father. The servant informed the Count that Senok had not been training for a while now, so the Count decided to take matters in his own hands. At the training ground, Senok asked how Aspen got her swordsmanship skills, and she brightly replied that she was born talented, which was a joke that Senok took seriously. She actually learned from a master when she was young, a retired Sky Knight, who might be serving the Sky Guard right now in this time period. She mentioned that there was a genius at the place she trained, a genius so talented, no matter how hard she competed, she could never reach. She used to think she hated him, but admitted that secretly, she might have been looking up to him this whole time. Senok wondered if she liked this genius. So she coughed and laughed, wiping her tears of laughter, saying there's no way she'd like that guy, causing Senok to smile. But then she remembered a time when he came to her bedside, robe falling open to his chest, saying she slept deeply, and this caused her to get red flustered. Suddenly, the boys who bullied Senok arrived, and Aspen drew her sword. One of the boys stopped her to say they were just here to relay a message from their master. Their instructor was looking for Senok. From what Aspen knew, Senok's instructor was a famous knight who had people from all over the world come to see him. She thought Senok had gotten permission from his instructor to stop going for training, but it was becoming clear he didn't. She pointed her blade at the boys and questioned the authenticity of their words. However, the main bully promised on his knight's honor he was telling the truth. The bully then called Senok a coward, and Senok tugged at Aspen's shirt. He wanted to tell his inside instructor that Pin was his teacher now, causing her heart to go, but She wonders what that feeling was. With her growing concern for Senok, comparing him to some meek, sniffling puppy, she decided to follow discreetly. She tailed them, trying to hide in the bushes, until she learned from Lephis that he could just make her invisible to other humans. She asked why he never mentioned this before, and with him admitting he was just being lazy, she had to punish him a bit. With her now invisible to everyone else, she spotted the instructor yelling at Senok, and the berating reminded her of how the other knights had treated her. Then we see Count Iset telling Senok he was going to be abandoned forever if he kept acting like this. Aspen couldn't stand to see this go on. She began getting up to confront them, but she realized there wasn't much she could do while looking like a child. So, Lephis offered to make her appear like an adult. As a thanks for helping him with Snowweaver, Count Iset told Senok he was going to attend classes every day from now on. And that's when the adult Pin appeared, announcing she was his guardian now. This made Count Iset shrivel back, thinking the Duke sent another noble to look after Senok. Pin also announced she was Senok's sword instructor, and by the looks of it, better suited than the current teacher. Of course, the instructor hired by the Count felt insecure, especially when Pin announced she'd show him how it's done. He sensed this aura of strength that was beyond him, and decided to win the only way he possibly could, which was to test her teaching abilities by having his student duel Senok. They agreed if Senok won, he'd be free to do whatever. But the next day, he was completely depressed. Cade arrived, noticing the mood was a little gloomy, and when Senok asked if Pin would leave him if he failed, she consoled him with the reminder she had no plan of leaving until he was comfortable with a sword. After all, he was her first student. This gave Senok the determination to win. As Cade overlooked the two, we learned he had actually seen Pin earlier, after she transformed into an adult. He wondered how she used magic without being a mage, and with so many questions in his mind, he questioned if he should tell his master about this, but knew she'd be confined to the magic tower if he did. A month passed, and as the duel was about to begin, we see the training Senok had gone through. Aspen acknowledged Senok's talents, as he was able to easily destroy dozens of training dummies. She felt a month was too short to solve all of Senok's issues, so she had Cade cast a spell that only let him see things he liked in the drill hall during the duel. He saw flowers, grass, clear skies, animals, and Pin. Also, he would no longer see his fears. When Senok clashed with the other boy, he wondered if the bully had always been this weak. Then, with a lunge forward, he knocked the sword from his opponent and pointed his blade at the fallen bully, claiming victory. As the two continued to look at each other, Senok coldly told his bully he wasn't such a big deal after all. With Senok's talent displaying fruition, the Count thought to himself he must tell Duke Black Knight about this, and also fired the instructor he hired. We moved to 18 years in the future, where the other Sky Knights were talking crap about Aspen. They were annoyed that Captain Senok had commanded an all-hands-on-deck search for her, and wondered when he was going to give up. Despite their constant downplay of Aspen's abilities, they praised their Captain Senok for capturing a first-degree criminal amidst all the chaos. They discussed rumors of how his father left him alone in the infamous Prochet Mountains to test his abilities, where upon coming out alive, he earned his title of Prodigy. At the same time, they wished that Aspen had been sent there, hoping they'd find her corpse recovered from the mountain. Behind them was a mage named Chloe, who was sympathetic towards Aspen, remembering her as her only friend. She wondered where Aspen was, thinking Captain Senok's behavior became strange since she went missing. Returning to the past, Senok was freed from the Sword Academy. Learning after the instructor was fired, it turned out he had lied about his expertise and was actually a hack. Enjoying the peace, Aspen noticed someone watching them from the bushes. Senok approached, ready to kill, and we see it was one of the bullies. He kept showing up to learn from Adult Pin, who Aspen claimed was her older sister. But she declined him immediately, telling him to leave. Cade then showed up, after learning from his master that 2 wizards from the Imperial Guard were coming to town soon. Aspen wondered if it was anyone she knew, but then again, probably not in this time period. Count Iset greeted these 2 wizards, hosting the both of them. When the servant tripped in front of them, the black-haired one, Mazeth, rank 6, killed the servant instantly for being incompetent, making the Count gulp nervously. Right behind them, however, the brown-haired mage noticed a cute little creature smelling the flowers. The wizard was rank number 7, Cleary, and he was curious about the creature. The creature walked right up to Cleary and told him he smelled nice. She stared brightly at him when he picked her up. However, Mazeth suddenly grabbed the creature, and even though she told this stinky human to let go, he ignored her words, ecstatic to have found research material. We turned to Aspen, thinking about her best friend. She assumed Chloe's father had to be a royal knight in this era, and remembered the time Chloe had told her she originally studied to be just like him, and that the two of them even looked similar. As Weavy was munching on Lephis, Lephis sensed the presence of another sacred beast. Aspen asked who it was, causing Lephis and Weavy to nervously exchange glances. He said this beast's name was Flea. She liked humans, but flowers even more. He then gave a lesson, explaining his medium for magic was snow, and her medium was flowers and plants. Aspen was concerned about this beast's personality, and Weavy nervously responded it was best not to make her angry. We transition to Cleary, who tells Mazet that the mistreatment of the mythical creature was unethical and against the wizard's code of conduct. Mazet assured everything was alright, and that this creature must be one he's read about in literature before, ones that caused abnormal climate phenomena and could control weather and nature. As Flea yawned, Mazet contemplated their tremendous discovery. What things could they find if they dissected the creature? They might even make history. Mazet reminded Cleary that he was the boss, and wouldn't accept any mutiny before stepping away. Cleary couldn't help but think Mazet was greedy, since it was against the wizard code of conduct to harm newly encountered living beings. This was when Mazet's pupil, Reuben, appeared. He brought a blanket, just in case the creature was cold. Cleary thought of Reuben to be too kind to be Mazet's pupil, reminding him of his daughter, Chloe. After receiving head pats, Reuben couldn't help but wish Cleary was his teacher. Reuben then went to deliver the blanket, and the creature told him he was very kind. Reuben was shocked to hear her talk. As the creature cuddled up to the blanket, the sacred beast mentioned Reuben smelled like grass, and then took the appearance of a young girl with flower bulbs on her head. She told him she liked kind humans, and asked for Reuben's help. Flea poked Reuben, laughing because he became red like a tomato. She introduced herself and explained she's been looking for her friend that looked similar to her. She wanted Reuben's help, but when he heard someone approaching, he got scared, thinking it might be his master Mazet coming back early. He told Flea to transform back, because if his teacher saw her like this, he'd for sure start experimenting on her. She changed back and thanked Reuben for helping her. This gave him a wave of emotion he'd never felt before. Back in the forest, where Pin and Senok first met, Weavy mentioned that Flea was most likely nearby, somewhere with a lot of plants. They were having a hard time finding her, since she was hiding her powers again. As they continued to search, Aspen wondered when Senok had gotten so tall. They searched some more, and Senok contemplated where Pin was from, and why she was looking for the divine beasts in the first place. He asked if she had a last name, and this caused memories to flood in from her childhood. She answered she was a commoner, and didn't have a last name. Senok then asked what she thought about marriage between nobility and commoners, and with her sweating and flustered, she said it was fine if they liked each other. She wondered why he was asking her this, but her answer made him light up. It was clear to Lephis she was totally oblivious. Senok wanted to know more about her, but when she tried to answer, she could only think of herself lying in pain and the flames that consumed her household. She lied, saying she was from somewhere far away. They decided to try searching in town, but all Weavy could think about was what they were having for dinner. Then, a man came running and bumping into Aspen. We see it's Cleary, and Aspen immediately catches on to his resemblance to Chloe. Cleary asked if she was hurt, and since he was a wizard, he could heal her. Cleary healed Aspen, and the pain immediately went away. He patted Aspen's head, remarking he had a daughter right around her age. With Cleary saying his goodbyes, Senok had never seen Aspen so nervous before. Ignoring Weavy's prompting for a meal, she told them to follow the wizard. Spotting Cleary arriving in front of Count Iset's manor, she noticed the uniform of the Royal Knights. This confirmed to her he really was Chloe's father, and she recalled Chloe mentioning of her father passing away during his travels. She felt shocked from the weight of meeting a future dead man. Back at Senok's place, Cade made it apparent that with the powerful magical barrier cast around the Count's manor, they must be hiding something. He surmised the sacred beast must be inside. Lephis plopped right onto Aspen's head to casually tell her he did feel a tingle coming from there, but she wondered why he didn't say anything sooner. Getting stretched, Lephis replied that if Flea really was in there, why didn't she come out and ask for help? He couldn't be certain it was her. With Aspen now determined to break into the manor, Kate brought up a problem. There were 2 royal knights staying in 2 different places, so they needed to split up. Since Lephis could sense Aspen even from far away, it made sense to send him with Weavy and Senok to keep lookout for wizards, while Aspen and Kate snooped around the place. Despite Senok definitely wanting to go with Pin, he accepted his duties, but grabbing onto her, he told her not to get too close to Kate. He wanted her all to himself, making Aspen wonder why she was getting so flustered. Cade teased, thinking he was close to Senok too, but Senok definitely wasn't having it. With the two teams ready, Aspen made a leaping start over the gate. Inside the mansion, Cade detected a magical barrier that only those with permission could enter. He could undo it, but he needed to pause the invisibility spell he casted on them. Maids that passed by mentioned their exhaustion serving the stationed wizard, talking of rumors of a creature's scream on a nightly basis. With Aspen and Cade tucked away, she was horrified to think it might be Flea. As they moved forward, Cade noted their invisibility spell may come undone again due to the strength of the magic barrier. So Aspen suggested that if the two of them got caught, it was better to do it in projections of their adult forms. Cade had seen her adult form the first time Lephis had cast a spell on her. It only added to his curiosity, like where did she come from? And why was she searching for the divine beasts? He really wanted to know more about her. Inside Flea's cage, she asked Ruben to let her out to see the flowers. Despite his fears of disobeying his master, he was willing to bring her out to at least see the garden. So she took her human form, leading him outside, where Ruben was pleasantly surprised to see Flea's beautiful creation magic. On Team Senok's side, Senok was lost in thought, desperately wanting to get closer to Pin. He believed she was the only person who truly saw him, and if she left, he wanted to go with her. In that short time, Lephis and Weavy would unfortunately get spotted by Cleary. But Aspen prepared Senok for just this situation, so he told Cleary something that would save them. Back in the garden, Ruben was concerned because Flea said she needed to find her friends. She was fine though, because she knew they were nearby. Right now, she just wanted to play with him, only to be discovered by the menacing aura of Ruben's master, Mazeth. Mazeth was at first annoyed that Ruben was playing outside instead of doing his assigned work, but then shifted to astonishment and diabolical laughter, knowing this girl was the same creature as the sacred beast he captured, and he was ready to dissect her. Ruben pleaded with his master not to touch her. However, Mazeth claimed Flea to be a monster he could do whatever he pleased with. Mazeth went to hit Ruben, but got knocked back by a fully enraged Flea. She shot her thorns to entangle him, but this only got him more excited. Aspen and Cade arrived at the scene, and it was getting out of control. Vines nearly attacked Ruben, but Aspen slashed them, saving the day. Ruben then begged Aspen to save Flea, while Flea gave a menacing stare. Upon seeing Ruben's injuries, Flea was able to calm down. However, Mazeth wasn't done fighting. Fortunately, Cade was far more talented, blocking Mazeth's spell, and Aspen got her opportunity to beat him up. And with that, Aspen told them they all needed to get out of here, and she'd make sure Ruben's wounds get treated, making Flea super happy. Later, Cleary was curious as to what happened here, and moreover, who Aspen truly was. Then, Senok popped up behind Cleary, assuring Aspen's plan was a success. But it wasn't over yet, with Cleary already having figured out Cade was the pupil of the Grand Wizard. He dispelled them and revealed their true forms. Afterwards, Cleary threatened to report Aspen if she didn't reveal her identity, so she used her trump card, declaring her group to be friends of his daughter, Chloe. With a deep sigh, Cleary told them they could all talk inside. While Mazeth was still out, the table set, and the three sacred beasts relaxing, Aspen gave the excuse that she lived in Chloe's hometown for a brief period of time, while saucing up Cleary, telling him how much his daughter was proud of him being a royal knight. She recognized him because the two looked similar. But to add to that, Aspen also knew Chloe had magic powers, which was the whole reason why Cleary chose for them to live in the secluded town of Lostfield, since he didn't want others to know about his daughter's magic. However, even with the story adding up, Cleary felt like something was off. It was as if Aspen was a knight who was familiar with being interrogated. That aside, Aspen asked Cleary to keep what happened here a secret, and he agreed, since he believed Aspen to be a friend close enough to his daughter to keep her secret. So, he promised to cast a memory fabrication spell on Mazeth. We turned back to Cade discussing with his master their purpose of arriving in the town. The Grand Wizard was searching for anyone interacting strangely with the flow of time, and Cade was supposed to report any findings. However, privately, before they left Cleary, he told Cade he should look out for his friends, and it was obvious Cade was somewhat conflicted about hiding these events from his master. Later, Aspen was surprised to hear Flea knew where the other sacred beast in town was. They apparently got separated because the other beast was attracted to fire and lightning, something she wasn't too fond of. They had Flea point out the last beast's location on the map that had suspiciously blurred out eyes of a popular Spanish learning cartoon. What an odd reference to make. I double-checked to make sure the author was Korean. She is. Did they have Dora the Explorer in Korea? Aspen stared in horror with the flooding memories of her previous childhood and her home that was set ablaze. Senok noticed Aspen was somewhat distraught, but she tried to play it off. Later that night, Aspen stared at the moon, unable to sleep. Lefis paid her a visit, knowing the truth of their next location. He warned her to avoid meeting her past self, otherwise she would disappear. In that case, they just have to lure the beast out. She then spotted Senok outside, and watching him glow amongst the beauty of the stars, she blushed, uttering the word, "Captain?" Senok noticed her, and she tried to play off what she said. They were both up right now, with a lot still on their minds. And knowing Aspen was going to leave this place to search for more sacred beasts after this one, Senok asked if he could follow her. She told him no, but he was desperate to go with her because he liked her. Aspen got flustered, losing her mind. Right, friends. You like me as a friend, right? She said nervously while slapping Senok. Thinking about it a bit deeper, she knew once she leaves, the only person who would be nice to Senok was his maid. She wondered who else might bully him next. The next day, with the sounds of the birds chirping, Aspen was surprised to see the bags under her eyes in the mirror. She thought she slept well, only to remember Senok's confession from last night, thinking there was no way Senok really had feelings for her. Oh, Aspen. This is some of that oblivious heroine syndrome. She thought Senok must like her like a duckling who spotted his mother for the first time. Thinking he must look up to her because she rescued him, she wondered if it was the same way she looked up to the captain. This made her remember a time she watched Captain Senok button up. But she wanted those bad thoughts to get out of her head. In the living room, Senok once again pondered on Aspen calling him captain. He asked where Pin's hometown was, with Lefis confidently declaring she used to live in a place called the capital, at least before she died. Jolting up, Senok asked what Lefis meant. However, the Master of Beasts refused to divulge more. Out in town, Aspen gave her goodbyes to Cade. However, he wanted to join her on her final mission here. A week earlier, at the Black Knight Estate, Cassian, the vice captain of the Knights at this time, discussed how he heard a report that Senok was showing potential. Cesnok Black Knight, the current captain, was surprised, since he always thought his son was just a useless brat. He decided to go visit Senok in person. Senok got notice that his father was headed his way, but he crumpled the notice, telling his maid to throw it away and claimed he never received the message. Back in town, Aspen questioned why Cade wanted to come with her, only to learn that he liked her too. She was shocked to hear the future Grand Wizard confessing to her, but she denied this. Cade was a child, just like Senok. She assumed he might like her like a friend. However, he immediately told her she was wrong, and that he could even kiss her right now. Aspen couldn't accept this with the soul of a woman in her 20s. With Cade's status as the Grand Wizard's pupil, he was tagging along for their mission to find the last sacred beast, making Senok not so happy, sparking rivalry between the two boys for Aspen's heart. Lefis and Flea were enjoying the show. Sitting in preparation, Senok wondered why Aspen looked sad. She revealed it was because they were heading towards her hometown. And it's not like she didn't want to be there. She wanted to return, but she couldn't. She wanted Senok to keep it a secret between them. Getting both of them blushing, she told them it was time to get ready because they'd be heading out in 2 days. With her heart beating so rapidly still, she wondered how this trip would turn out. 2 days later, Cleary came to visit, questioning where Aspen was going off with all that luggage. She announced to the Swar estate, and was surprised to hear Cleary was willing to go with her. He'd make an excuse, telling Mazeth and County Set that he was going on a research trip to gather information about the Swar estate's surroundings. But also, he's heard that Duke Black Knight was visiting soon, prompting Senok to usher Pin that they needed to leave immediately. After Senok explained that he didn't want to run into his father, Cleary was shocked to learn Senok was his captain's son. While the three beasts were playing around the luggage, Cleary asked Aspen and Senok if they needed him to buy them time, and with Duke Black Knight's arrival, Cleary did just that, giving Aspen the opportunity to have Cade sneak them out. However, Duke Black Knight wasn't pleased, discovering his son was missing, so he gave the order for his subordinates to find Senok. As the gang made their way escaping through the sky, Senok knew his father would be furious, but it was fine, since being with Pin, he felt freer than he's ever been. To him, she was his savior, so he always wanted to be with her. Outside of town, the gang sat around the campfire, ready to enjoy a meal served by Cade. Cade asked about them leaving early due to the arrival of Duke Black Knight, noting he's only seen the Duke once, who beat people to a pulp without much effort, the kind of beating they think Senok in no way deserved. Aspen concluded the Duke must be the reason why Senok eventually became colder in the future. As Cade was about to serve Aspen food, they heard some rustling, and Cade was going to turn them into their adult forms. And in her adult form, Aspen was shocked to see the face of her captain. He flashed back to where Aspen had told Cade if they ran into anyone while out here, he cast the adult illusion spell on them. But she somehow wasn't expecting Senok to have the face of the captain she knew. Senok tried to check on her, giving flashbacks to a different time with him, which made her face red. She tried to play it off, asking for space. Out from the forest came a guy asking if they're the ones who set up camp here, getting the three wary enough to jump the man. The man shuddered, as he could sense Aspen was no ordinary swordsman, so he dropped his weapon and apologized for trespassing. He was just really hungry. Aspen gave Cade the okay to hand the man some food, but if the man tried any funny business, they'd tie him up and leave him here. While the man ate, Lephis told the beasts to act like stuffed animals, and upon finishing the meal, Zack revealed himself to be an A-class mercenary. He was apparently on his way back from visiting the Portia estate. He knew the woods here were dangerous, and the guide he came with actually ran away. Also, he lost his wallet and compass wandering around. Aspen knew that mercenaries were hired hands that typically took any and all requests from clients for financial gain. She found it pretty suspicious he got lost from losing a compass. There was no way an A-class mercenary who was highly experienced would let his things get lost or stolen. Zack then announced he was on his way to the Swar estate, heading there for work. Apparently, there was a lot of chaos there because of an arsonist who appeared recently. A man in his 30s that's been starting fires in the woods that spread to nearby villages. But most shockingly for Aspen was that this man had set a mansion of nobility on fire as well. The lords of the surrounding areas were gathering vigilantes and mercenaries to deal with him. Zack ended up leaving after his meal and promised to pay them back next time. And even though Aspen wasn't expecting to cross paths with him again, the next time turned out to be right at the gates of an estate. After leaving the forest, the gang arrived at a village near the Swar estate. From here, the Swar estate was only 3 more days away. However, at the gate, they were rejected from entering, even with Cade's ID card showing he was the Grand Wizard's pupil. The guard told them that normally, Cade would be granted entry, but the arsonist was also rumored to be a wizard. The guard suddenly got notice that Aspen's gang were suspects, and we now find them surrounded. Aspen would have no problem dispatching the guards. However, she didn't want to be suspected as the arsonist's accomplices. Luckily, Zack happened to arrive, and he was apparently friends with the guard, General Jacobs. He then saved the day by telling the general that the 3 were with him. But even getting his help, Aspen recalled not too fond memories when dealing with mercenaries like Zack. They once hired mercenaries to search for the Grand Wizard when the Emperor was ill. Most of those mercenaries were greedy and backstabbed like it was second nature. They at least obeyed fully paying clients. In this scenario, where she hadn't hired Zack, she felt like she couldn't trust him. Despite this, Zack tried to gain some credit, explaining right now he was on the hunt for a traitor. With Cade verifying the authenticity of Zack's words using a truth-checking spell, Zack explained he was looking for a person who betrayed his colleague and tried to kill him. At dinner, Aspen tried to ascertain Zack's true goals, and he revealed it was the arsonist who was actually his backstabbing colleague, leaving Aspen to wonder at night if this was somehow all connected to the fire that burned down her home. In the boys' room, Cade told Senok about Pin's powers of time, noting it was unusual that Pin borrowed the powers of a mythical creature, a concept that's never before existed. This power of time could only be used before the point of death, and these powers have always been dangerous to humans. Knowing this, the 2 boys agreed that if Pin's powers went out of control, they'd both step in. 3 days later, they arrived at the Swar estate, and Aspen was deeply upset that she couldn't visit her mother and father. Lightning then flashed out of nowhere, and Zack explained it's been appearing around as of late, even on clear days. Lephis explained that it was because of the divine beast, Laika, who liked both lightning and fire. He was more powerful than Weavy and Flea, but what made Aspen the most nervous was hearing he hated humans. Inside the estate, the maids were searching everywhere for young Lady Aspen, who was chuckling from her hide-and-seek game. Her father, Count Swar, found her and picked her up lovingly, asking where her mother was. He sweetly patted his beloved daughter, knowing she must feel sick being cooped up in the house. Since the estate's been so dangerous lately, he was frightened and hoped the people he hired would catch the arsonist soon. He He wanted to stroll outside with his daughter like he used to. With the knock on the door, the butler announced the arrival of Baron Sahaman. And with her father mentioning the Baron wasn't allowed inside, Aspen could see how scary her father's face had become. Count Swar sent Aspen out to go find her mother, but as they talked, Aspen thought about entering back to surprise him, only to get frightened, hearing her father decline the Baron for borrowing too much money all the time. Count Swar knew the Baron had a bad gambling habit. If he asked again, he'd be barred from entering the house. And with that, there was a loud door slam. Aspen went to check on her father, but she only saw Baron Sahaman cursing her father under his breath. Staring at the estate, our Aspen remembered the loving memory of her parents. But now, Zack began his search for the arsonist, while her group began their search for Laika. She contemplated if there was a connection between Laika and the arsonist, given Laika's affinity for fire. Senok noticed her exhaustion from thinking, but suddenly, her face got red. She denied the cause being Senok's handsome gaze. She then spotted a familiar man. It was her uncle, Baron Sahaman. She wondered who the other person was with him. This gave Aspen an uneasy feeling. She always remembered her uncle and father getting along well, so why was her uncle walking off looking so upset? Aspen then grabbed Senok, and she headed after them. Elsewhere, with Flea and Cade playing together, she spotted Laika. Laika plopped himself nearby, and with humans spotting him, he tried to strike with lightning. But a barrier casted by Cade protected the men. Laika came out hissing and growling, until he spotted Flea. Cade used the opportunity to reach out as another bolt of lightning struck, steel-tailing the Baron and the mysterious man. Aspen recalled once again the good relationship her uncle had with her father, but thought it was strange how her uncle would always leave so quickly, and mentioned how small their estate was. The Baron and the man approached close to them, so Aspen pulled Senok in, telling him to put his hands on the wall. And when the Baron walked by, Aspen's plan to fake make out with Senok worked, as the Baron thought of them as nothing more than stupid kids. Paying the kids no mind, the mysterious man and the Baron confirmed the plan would be executed in 3 days' time. Aspen was astonished to hear her uncle wanted the mansion burned down in flames with no witnesses or evidence left. With the image of her home burning down in her mind, Aspen bit her lip in reaction to discovering her uncle was the culprit all along. She just kept remembering how close her uncle and father were, only to have her nostalgia shattered by her uncle laughing about taking the Swar's family fortune. Aspen clenched her fist in anger, ready to break his legs or kill him right now. But then, she remembered her captain telling her he admired her righteousness, giving her the sensibility to calm down. Now having a clear visual on the arsonist and connecting the dots to her past, she wasn't going to let history repeat itself. If she changed the past though, what would happen to her? Would that mean, with her parents not dying, she'd never join the Sky Knights? Would she keep living unscarred? Would she never meet Senok? The gang reconvened at night, exhausted. Zack returned, and after Aspen had Cade cast a vow spell on him that created a magic unbreakable oath, one that would cause Zack's heart to stop beating if he broke it, she revealed they found the arsonist, making Zack ask where he was with a killer expression. He wanted to make the arsonist pay for his wrongdoing. That night, Aspen reflected on her plan to have Cade use magic to record the arsonist's crimes right before he committed them. Zack ultimately accepted, but still questioned what Pin's motives were. She knew, by changing the future again, she may have to pay a price. Then suddenly, Cade came into the room, revealing his interaction with Laika. Recalling that explosive lightning earlier in the afternoon, Cade was quite impressed. Laika's tail acted as a lightning rod, so he didn't get hurt by his own lightning. However, Lee was worried because she saw an injury on his tail. Laika was upset with Flea for siding with a human, especially a wizard one at that. The human who tried to capture and murder him was also a wizard, and after drawing more lightning to himself, Laika disappeared. Putting aside what happened to him earlier, Cade was more worried about Aspen's distraught look. Getting closer to her, he suddenly reverted to his childlike form due to exhaustion. Aspen checked his head and could feel a little fever coming off of him. She told Cade not to push himself so hard because it worried her. His face got flush red, making Aspen worry even more. She shoved him onto her bed, telling him to lie down and rest. After cooling down, he made the excuse that wizards tended to run hot, and it was just a temporary thing. Then, transformed back, and outside of the room, his heart beat, just thinking about his times with Aspen. In a restaurant, the gang sat under a magic barrier where all sound was blocked, and the divine beasts were made invisible. Aspen worried that Cade might be using too much magic, but he assured her he was fine, because wizards were better at using their magic when there was something to focus on. And right now, he was focusing on her. Senok wasn't so happy with Cade's smooth talk. The team contemplated on how to get Laika to their side, considering Laika seemed to hate humans even more now. But Flea still wanted another opportunity to meet with him personally. Their goal was to lure Laika out of the city, since his powers could easily start a fire. Cade's job was to set the trap, while Aspen's side was in charge of luring him. She asked Lephis what kind of things Laika liked, and the sacred bunny confidently answered he had no idea, proving to still be the least helpful. But while Lephis dealt with punishment, Flea brought up Laika's love for lightning and fire, questioning if there was a place in this city with lots of fire. Aspen took them to the smithy, and of course, next to the fire was Laika. Elsewhere, Baron Sahaman was taking his anger out on commoners. He thought about how his brother Count Swar said he wasn't going to lend him any more money, how he was embarrassed right in front of the Countess. With his anger swelling, he asked the arsonist if he could start the job sooner. At Cade's location, he got the signal from Pin that Flea was luring Laika to the specified location, so they needed to head to the place where the trap was set. Hiding in the forest, Aspen mentioned she's been wanting to return home. Well, Senok's place she treated like home anyways. Senok began thinking if they got married, that's how they would live. But he held himself back from saying that out loud. This occurred while Flea tried to convince Laika to change his mind about the humans. After all, she was kidnapped once, but a kind human saved her. However, Laika accused Flea of being brainwashed. As he could see all along, Aspen was hiding nearby. Beginning his assault, Cade was ready to counter. Laika's lightning was useless, since Cade also included a lightning rod in the cage as well. Aspen walked up, and even with Laika not wanting to talk to her, she offered him a chance to get revenge on the human who injured him. That offer still wasn't enough, so to earn his trust, Aspen released him from his cage. However, he still wasn't going to trust a human. But Aspen lightly mouthed, telling him she was already dead, so she asked him not to count dead humans as humans. Laika was still surprised they convinced Flea to join their side, considering she used to hate humans just as much as he did. But as long as they helped him get revenge, he'd be willing to side with Aspen for now. Everyone then began running over to Aspen's side, but with Laika's tail throbbing, lightning struck a tree, even though he didn't mean to. After putting out an exhausting fire, Aspen was glad to finally have all the sacred beasts in one place. But in her heart, she was antsy, knowing tomorrow was the day the arsonist sets Count Swar's manor on fire. Heading back to town, she was horrified, not expecting to find the entire estate already on fire. Zack came running in and spotted the criminal laughing as he was setting things ablaze. Seeing the same direction he was running towards, people shouted that the fire was spreading to the Count's manor. With Zack calling her over, Aspen could only stand in fear with her heart beating. Senok ran over to her, trying to snap her out of it. Aspen then uttered, "Captain?" And seeing Senok's face, she came back to her senses. She tried to think of how she could save both the city and the Count's manor. Hearing from Zack that he spotted a nobleman colluding with the arsonist, Aspen clenched her fist, knowing it was her uncle. She told Zack to run ahead and she'd catch up. She had something important to do on her end. She desperately wanted to go to her parents. Cade could put out fires using his magic, especially if it was just the manor like Aspen was requesting. However, the city would be done for. Laika then revealed the surrounding fires were things he could put out right away. Since Aspen had a contract with Lephis, she could use Laika's powers. But with his tail injured, he couldn't do it as efficiently. So he needed Aspen to do it if she wanted to save this place. Aspen thought back to asking Lephis if she could run into her past self if she was invisible, but he explained that wouldn't work, since their souls would still meet. In front of everyone, she asked Lephis if all she had to do was avoid running into that girl. She now knew for sure the moment she met Senok, the future had already changed. But without any delay, she told Senok and Cade to handle Swar Manor. She'd deal with the city fire. Cade questioned this, knowing the nobles should be able to take care of themselves, and the city was so big. Didn't she need help here? In a solemn tone, she responded the reason was because her parents were going to die today. She knew Cade must have understood somewhat of her conversation with Lephis a moment ago. The object that had the power of time was not an object, but a person. She tells them, "I am a traveler who came from the future." And with this being the hometown of where her parents died, she begged the boys to save them for her because she couldn't go due to her situation. Without hesitation, Senok and Cade agreed. With Senok passing by, he told Aspen he was on her side forever. Flea dragged Weavy over to Aspen because the snow would probably help. And now, the mission to save the town began. Laika had to quickly teach Aspen how to use magic, since Lephis never did. She put her head to Weavy's, and his power coursed through her, giving her a new form where they shared a mental bond. There were two conditions to borrowing or controlling a divine beast's power. The first being, the beast had to trust the one making contact. He could tell Weavy really trusted her. She used Weavy's power to make it snow all over the city, preventing the fire from spreading. Although, noticing there was no way she'd reach the manor, the current fire couldn't be put out with snow, since it was started with magic. So, she used Laika's powers next, and absorbing all the fire, she put her trust in Senok and Cade to save her parents. Finally saving the city, she fell exhausted next to the two sacred beasts. But it wasn't over yet. Spotting her uncle, it was time to make him pay. Going back 30 minutes earlier, Cade and Senok prepared to enter the manor. While making his way through the burning manor, Cade couldn't help but feel they'd taken off more than they could chew. With Senok telling him to hurry up, Cade wondered why he seemed so calm. Senok definitely felt the burn, but he'd burn his life away to make Pin's wishes come true. They eventually find Count and Countess Swar and clear a way for the two to safely get out. But the Countess freaks out, being unable to find Aspen. Leftis called this the law of equivalent exchange. By saving the lives of those meant to die, a price must be paid. She had to die as a price for keeping her parents alive. Knowing Aspen was in there coughing in the fire, the Count tried to go in, only to be stopped by his servants. Cade knew the Count's daughter was the Pin from this timeline, but he didn't know what to do. Senok was prepared to go and save her. Even knowing his death might be the price, he wouldn't mind dying with Pin. Plants suddenly arose amongst the fire, and Flea grabbed on the Leftis, sucking out his energy so she could keep the building from falling with her magic. Cade also opened a way for Senok using his magic, and even though Leftis warned Senok, saving Aspen may cause him to lose something important, Senok just ignored it and went anyway. Leftis used magic butterflies to lead Senok to Aspen, and he was happy to have finally found her. With everyone worried Aspen wouldn't make it out, Senok came through with her in his arms, and Count Swar thanked him for saving his daughter. The city was saved, Baron Sahaman got caught, and so did the arsonist. And with Aspen ready to rest, it snowed all day long. Countess Swar thanked the boys for saving her daughter, and offering the two to stay over and have dinner with them, they accepted, not wanting to disrespect Pin's mother. So they spent the night in the annex. The next day, during mealtime, Cade once again questioned Senok's decision to jump in the fire. What if he died? But he didn't, and he desired to live as brave as Aspen from now on. He wanted to be someone who wasn't afraid to save others, even if he got hurt in the process. And if he became a man he could be proud of, he'd propose to her. This got Cade to choke a little. Cade teased, telling Senok she'd love that. Love to run away from that is. This comment continued to spark the established rivalry between the two. With dinner set, Senok knew Pin would have loved to have been here. But Leftis already told the boys her soul would disappear if she came in contact with her past self. Little Aspen tugged on Cade's sleeve, making Senok panic internally. She then ran over to hold her mother tightly, unable to thank the boys due to her shyness. The boys said their goodbyes to the parents, but Senok couldn't get the thought out of his head that Pin should have been the one to accept their words of gratitude instead. Before they left, little Aspen gave a thankful curtsy, saying she wouldn't forget them for saving her. The Swars told them they could visit any time. However, that wasn't enough for Senok. He got the parents' permission to speak with Aspen privately, while Cade brought our Aspen over to her parents. Cade told the Swars that this girl was a colleague of his who told him to come save everyone at the manor. And as Aspen bowed, her heart beat, seeing her mother and father again, all while getting a heartfelt thanks from them. Hearing she was the one who courageously put out the fires in the city, they thanked Aspen for saving their estate and hoped their daughter could be like her someday, bringing Aspen to tears. Back at base, even though she could have stayed longer, Aspen knew it was time to leave. If she stayed any longer, she'd just get more attached. Zack entered, thanking her for everything, and handed her a pass that she could use to get help from his mercenary group, the White Bird Troop, anytime. Then, they went their separate ways, heading back on a carriage provided by the Swar family, with Aspen's loving thoughts of her parents on her mind. The gang got out right before entering the city, so Cade could stop exhausting his usage of magic. Cleary suddenly appears with no time to explain. He needed them to hide, but with the sword flying at Aspen, she deflected it instinctively, catching the praise from Duke Black Knight. He was pissed that his son ignored his summons, and even with Aspen drawing her blade, he gave Senok an ultimatum. Come with him obediently, or he'd kill the other two kids and Cleary. Aspen tried to stop him, but Senok accepted his fate, heading out with his father and the vice captain. Then, Cade had to go back to his master, and Cleary had to be somewhere else. Aspen was left with just the sacred beast. Returning to his master, Cade asked about the master's reasoning for searching for the time traveler and the sacred beasts. However, after learning when the previous time traveler and creature was discovered by the Grand Wizard's master's master, and both dissected for science to death, Cade kept quiet about what he's learned about Aspen and Lephis. The next day, where Senok was confined, his father told him if he came back to the main castle, he'd take back his order to destroy this city. Senok wondered why his father was paying attention to him now, and simply put, the Duke thought Senok was useful now. Senok was conflicted, knowing he only got stronger because of Pin, but if he didn't follow his father, the house that he lived in with Pin would be burned to the ground. He didn't want that, because he wanted to live in that house with her again one day. Agreeing to his father's request, the Duke gave Senok 2 days to prepare his things. Back at the house, Cade learned Aspen had to leave. Lephis warned her she had to go, but didn't answer why. It would make sense for her to leave, especially having gathered all the sacred beasts. She was already dead, just borrowing her current body with Lephis's powers. Even if she stayed, there was no way she'd be able to watch Senok grow up to become the captain. Then, Senok suddenly appeared in a fancy outfit. Aspen rushed over to him, worried about how he's been. He was fine now, and announced he was going back to the capital. So, Aspen brightly invited him to a picnic. The two sat side by side, eating sweets together. With him staring at her though, it was hard for her to say what she wanted to say. She then mentioned on days like these, there was someone who always came to mind. Someone she probably wouldn't be able to see ever again. That person was stoic, but kind and benevolent. All while we see Senok violently interrogating a man who might have seen Aspen Swar still alive. Senok was astonished to hear Aspen was planning on leaving. So, with a little help from Flea, he'd get a bouquet and ask Aspen to marry him. Aspen's heart thudded as Senok expressed his feelings towards her. But there was no way she could accept the captain's feelings, especially knowing their actual age difference. With tears in her eyes, she rejected him, but he held her hand, wondering why. He couldn't imagine being with anyone else but her. She pushed him away, thinking she needed to get out of here and to think about this more clearly, leaving the boy with the fallen bouquet. But she turned to see an eruption of aura, destroying the trees. Cade intervened, saying he'd help Aspen, as long as she chose him. She didn't know she'd end up in this situation, but felt terrified for the future, knowing she wouldn't be in either of their lives. She readied a blade using Weevy's magic, telling the boys they needed to beat her, because she'd only like someone stronger than her. With the boys standing nervously, she told them she'd beat them so badly, they'd never confess to her again. The two boys sat sadly defeated. Senok was definitely sad, knowing he might never see Aspen again. However, Aspen promised they'd reunite one day, so that way he wouldn't cry. But she also wouldn't allow him to propose to her. With the two boys making their leave, Lephis was ready to tell Aspen the price they were going to pay for having saved the Swars back at their manor. The price for them saving young Aspen was that the boys would both lose the memories of the current one. Not just them, everyone would forget her. And even though it made her sad, she accepted it. After all, she was already dead. She felt this was all unfair, with her being the only one who'd remember the time she spent with Senok and Cade. Cade came back to warn Aspen she needed to leave the city because his master, the Grand Wizard, suspected the time traveler was somewhere here. This meant she was in a dangerous situation and could potentially become an experimental subject. He'd buy time to get her out of here. However, that wasn't necessary. She explained that everyone was going to forget her soon enough. Cade flashed back to Lephis's ominous warning, catching on that it was because they saved her younger self. He then swore to become the Grand Wizard, to find a way to never forget her. Suddenly, the knights arrived with Cleary captured. They must be showing up now after hearing of the existence of divine beasts. Despite her worries, Cade promised to protect Cleary and urged Aspen to leave. Panting out of breath, she found herself at the same pool of water she first opened her eyes at. Lephis announced it was their time to leave, with the location of the next mythical creature found. The last one wasn't in this time period. After they teleported, Aspen would be given the adult form of her choice. With no explanation, Aspen slowly awakened on a city street, staring in horror, waking up seeing a dead person. Then, she saw a sword dripped in blood, the sword that belonged to none other than Captain Senok of the Imperial Sky Knights. And at this moment, she realized this was the time period after she died. While she was at a loss seeing Senok, he pointed his blade, telling her to identify herself. It was clear he didn't remember who she was. With her having no identification either, he threw her into the brig. Lephis asked how she felt traveling through time, and she answered she felt like shit. He told her not to worry, huddling with all his beasts. he promised all she needed to do was trust him. He's been reserving his strength up to this point. See, they've returned to the time period when Aspen died. Well, that's what would have happened, except by meddling with a different version of the past and coming back, the points in time have become connected and mixed up. Things were different here now in ways they didn't know. When Senok would revisit the cell later, he was surprised the pink-haired girl was missing. Aspen, meanwhile, returned to her home for the time being, thanks to Lephis. He gained a lot of his power back because they gathered the divine beasts in an effort to go look for the next one. He suggested they walk around the capital. Stepping outside her door, she wasn't expecting Senok to be living right next to her. She slammed her door, huffing and panting inside. He'd then knock, calling for Dame Aspen, asking her to come out because he's been waiting for her. Realizing right now her hair being pink was an uncommon color, she opened the door, borrowing Leica's power to turn it a deep crimson like his fur, and asked who Senok was. She made the excuse that Aspen told her to take care of her place while she was gone. Senok was a bit skeptical, but pleaded to know more, because Aspen was important to him, and not a day had gone by that he hadn't worried since she went missing. Guilt washed over Aspen. She told him one day Aspen showed up injured, so she promised to look after her house. Aspen supposedly said she wanted to have a life of freedom from now on. Senok responded sadly with, "Is that so?" and thanked her as he walked away. Aspen was relieved he bought it. She thought her heart was going to burst from nerves. She couldn't believe he was living next door. She needed to move, and wondered if there was a way for her to make money. Luckily, Lephis could create human currency from thin air, and with coins raining on her, Aspen asked why he had never made any while they were at Senok's house. As we've come to expect, he proudly answered he didn't need to then. They lived pretty comfortably under Senok's family wealth. Aspen put on a change of clothes and began her search for a new place to live, meeting defeat because everything was so overpriced. Normally, she'd get a discount being the vice captain of the Sky Guard, but right now, she couldn't just show people her sword. There was also a limit to how many gold coins Lephis could make at once. They'd have to wait until tomorrow. Aspen would spot Senok and hide quickly in an alley while calling Lephis for an appearance change. Peeking over the corner, she realized it was someone else entirely, who just happened to have a similar build. And turned back around, she bumped into a man with a familiar-sounding voice. It was Cleary. She dipped out, saying, "I'm really okay, Sir Cleary," and he wondered how she knew his name. Catching her breath some ways away, she questioned why he was still alive when he should be dead. Too many things had changed. Where was her dead body in this world? She wondered if she and her parents were still alive. Everything was getting way too complicated for her to think about right now. She considered asking Lephis, but didn't want to know right now. The answer might be too devastating, and she wasn't ready to hear it yet. After turning back into adult form, a girl would suddenly bump into her. And strangely, she had pink hair too. Elsewhere, Senok's servant was telling him he needed to decide on a date for his engagement announcement. His vassals were expressing strong criticism, insisting it was unacceptable to violate a long-standing agreement between two noble houses because of his late father. And House Gaud had already paid their price. Senok thought back to Aspen's warm words of comfort, empathizing that she knew what it was like to feel alone. She was his light under the weight of his family's dukeship. He crushed his pen, splattering ink all over his hand as he told his servant to set the engagement party date for whenever. Back to Aspen, she was taken aback by this other pink-haired girl's beauty. This was her first time seeing someone with actual pink hair. The girl stared at Aspen intently and asked if they were related. She suddenly grabbed Aspen, begging for help, and then quickly passed out, getting caught by Aspen before hitting the ground. Waking up in Aspen's room, Gloria Gaud, Marquis Gaud's daughter, broke into tears, explaining she's been locked up in a tower her whole life. She was there for 24 years because of her father. Long ago, her mother gave birth to her and ran away, and because of that, her father was extremely suspicious of everyone. So, he raised her in a tower from the time she was just a little baby, but never visited her, even once. If her older brother hadn't found her, she would have lost her mind. On her 24th birthday, her father visited for the first time, only to tell her she needed to marry for the sake of the family. He called it a marriage, but it was more like he was selling her off. So, she ran away, wanting to live her own life from now on. Aspen empathized with Gloria. It was just like when she was about to quit the Sky Knights. She served her a meal, and while chatting, she was shocked to learn Gloria was engaged to the Duke of House Black Knight, Senok. Aspen calmed down, remembering she heard about this engagement even when she was vice captain. She wasn't happy about it, being pretty insecure back then, since it seemed like Senok had it all. She was an immature fool, overwhelmed by her inferiority complex. Gloria would go on to explain she's never met Senok, and he likely didn't know what she looked like, since there wasn't a single portrait of her in the Goud Manor. Their family was known for their pink hair. That was probably the only thing he knew. She was worried because Duke Black Knight was notoriously evil and cruel. Even locked up her whole life, she's heard he was known to be completely violent and ruthless, even almost killing an innocent subordinate of his. Aspen thought that was impossible. The captain she knew was known for his fairness and integrity. She couldn't comprehend what could have possibly happened to him. That night, Aspen assisted in Gloria's escape from the capital via a discreet carriage. She helped, all because Gloria reminded her of herself in a way. A few days later, some knights stormed into Aspen's place and took her to the Goud Manor. Believing she was Gloria, Marquis Goud dismissed the knights, drawing his blade, figuring she was the woman who helped his daughter escape. The previous night, Gloria warned Aspen to flee as well, thinking this could happen. Aspen couldn't, because she needed to find a sacred beast here, of course. The Marquis was about to kill Aspen, but Gloria's brother, Glenn, barged in, telling his father to stop, because he couldn't find Gloria. His father berated and called him useless, but either way, Glenn suggested they use Aspen, since she had the same hair color as them. They especially needed her right now, because Duke Senok Black Knight was waiting for the Marquis downstairs. The Marquis stomped his way down, and left alone, Glenn apologized to Aspen, promising if she just waited a bit longer, he'd help her get out of here. At the same time, Lephis felt it. He told Aspen the energy of the last divine beast was here. He could feel it below the basement of this place. Glenn then introduced himself. He had actually watched Aspen help his sister escape that night in secret. He was thankful for her, and apologized for bringing her into their family matters. Aspen suddenly brought up the basement, and Glenn realized he could help her escape through a secret passageway down there, and help her get out that way. His father might get angry with him, but he'd never get cast out, being the sole heir to House Goud. Downstairs, Marquis Goud was doing his best to hype up his daughter's beauty to Senok, saying she was so precious, he didn't even have a single portrait of her. Senok wondered how that could possibly make any sense. With the Marquis going on about his family's special trait, being the only noble family in the capital with rare pink hair, Senok thought about the girl he locked up in prison the other night. He wondered if they were the same person. Meanwhile, while Glenn was leading Aspen out, he expressed wishing his father would stop using this place altogether, since he was letting some strange group use it. They reached an altar, and Lephis told Aspen he could feel the divine beast's energy inside the chest they saw. When Aspen asked Glenn about it, he told her the chest contained their family's heirloom, and that there was a magic spell on it that prevented anyone from stealing it. Despite knowing the request was strange, no matter what way she chopped it up, she suddenly asked Glenn to show her his family heirloom, and he did, pulling out what he called the necklace of flowers. Lephis then told her he felt the traces of the divine beast within it. He would tell her they should take it, much to her freaking out about stealing. Glenn would suddenly get a warning alert, sent by his aide. Unfortunately, he needed to go back up. The Marquis cheerfully announced the arrival of his daughter, and of course, it was Aspen. She never knew this was going to lead to her being Senok's fiancée. She curtsied, saying, "Pleased to meet you, Your Grace," while thinking, "Please don't recognize me, please don't recognize me." Senok would ask to speak with Gloria alone, making both the Marquis and Aspen shocked. As the Marquis was commanded away, he whispered to Aspen she better not do anything she'd regret, or else he'd follow her to the pits of hell and kill her. He didn't scare her though. Alone now, Senok hit her with, "We meet again," now asking why she ran away that night, and that she could have just told him who she was. She averted her gaze, answering it was because she snuck out without permission. Still, he wanted to know how she escaped jail. She couldn't tell him she knew the ins and outs of the capital's underground jail from her time being vice captain. So, she told him her family sent a person over, and her father left no recording of bailing her out because it would shame her family. After hearing her rational explanation, he told her that even as her fiancée, he couldn't give her his attention, kindness, feelings, or love, and asked if she still wanted to be engaged to him. Aspen thought this was so strange, wondering if he was always this cold, because neither the captain nor young Senok was ever like this. She thought he'd at least be friendly, and seeing a projection behind her, Senok questioned if he was hallucinating. He stumbled, feeling something pulsate through him as his migraines finally went away. It was as if something was at the edge of his mind. Seeing she had no desire to call off the engagement, he decided to take his leave. With him gone, Lephis told Aspen in 3 days' time, As long as he carried the necklace of flowers with him, he'd be able to ascertain the location of the final beast. Unfortunately, 2 days later, Aspen was shocked to hear he needed even more time. He found something strange. It seemed like the last beast was hiding somewhere in human form. Unlike Weavy, this beast was likely hiding all their beast features, looking completely human after strengthening its powers. He was going to try his best, but he needed more traces of energy. Chatting with Glenn, Aspen asked him if there was another item similar to the heirloom. He explained it was part of a pair, the other part being at Black Knight Manor. His father gave it to the Duke as a form of dowry. Aspen couldn't believe it was there of all places. She was surprised to hear Glenn offering to let her keep their family heirloom, since some other people were after it. But either way, she'd go to Black Knight Manor to see the other part of the heirloom, and it'd probably be easy to ask for, since she was the Duke's fiancée. Glenn suggested she go on a date. Much to her dismay, she'd wear the proper attire for a marquis's daughter, but she was grateful Glenn took the initiative and arranged the whole thing. Senok wasn't expecting to receive a letter from the Goud family, given what he said to Gloria yesterday. She told him it was alright, since her family still wanted him. He could tell she didn't want to be engaged to him either, but wondering why she was wasting her time like this, he decided to humor her, since it wouldn't be polite to send her back home. So, he offered her to come to his place for a meal. Aspen was blown away that Glenn's plan was working. Senok offered his hand to Aspen into the carriage, and she could see, despite how cold he was, there were still glimpses of the kind and polite captain she knew. She wished she had told him how much she admired and cared for him back when she was his vice captain. The dinner options were both fine and exquisite. Aspen was overwhelmed. She was so full after, she was uncomfortable. She thought about how big the manor was, having only been here once in her past life. In the guest bedroom, she was so drunk at that time, she didn't remember much. She suddenly asked to see the necklace Senok received from her family as a dowry, and so, he commanded a servant to bring it. It shined gloriously, and he offered to let her examine all she wanted. Lephis could feel the mythical creature's powers within it as well. Senok then shifted things to ask if she and him had met before. Aspen became anxious, answering, of course. They met in the alleyway the other night. But still, he pressed about possibly meeting another time before. With her denying it, he clenched his hand, telling her to pretend he never asked. Lephis would suddenly tell Aspen he could feel the divine beast's power much stronger in this necklace, and the presence of the last beast was somewhere in this manor. Aspen was astonished. She wondered why the captain was involved with the divine beast. She asked Senok to give her a tour of his home, with the excuse she was curious, because she's never been in such a large manor before. He didn't understand all these requests, but accepted. His servant came in to tell him something, and would give her a tour in his stead. The servant showed her various rooms, while she thought about how she could find a way to look around on her own. Flea would offer to help, and use her powers to take Aspen's place, while Weavy made Aspen invisible, although he couldn't keep her invisible for long. With Aspen entering the guest room, she remembered that night she had gotten completely drunk here. Senok told her she was so drunk, she probably wouldn't remember the next day. Lephis felt malice here, and showed her that malice the last divine beast was letting off. Divine beasts were originally holy, but if they felt maliciousness towards another being and cursed them, they traded their status for powers of malice. From that power, it increased from negative human emotions like rage, hatred, or sorrow. It was something a divine beast should never do. They weren't just looking for a divine beast, but now a criminal who had done something forbidden. Leica would tell Aspen they were out of time, and she hurried back before her invisibility wore off. She ultimately thanked Senok for the tour, asking to come back another time. While she was leaving, he thought it was strange that despite being a noble lady, she did a perfect knight's bow. It gave him thoughts about Aspen. With Aspen gone, a strangely veiled woman would approach Senok, greeting her dearly beloved Duke. The next day, Glenn would take Aspen out in preparation for some special guests that'd be visiting their manor. They'd overhear a missionary telling some women their wishes would come true so long as they prayed at the temple. The Empire didn't have an official religion because its people believed in magic. There were small religious factions, but they were practically non-existent compared to other kingdoms. Aspen questioned the nonsense they were talking. If they were a cult, the Sky Knights would take care of it. She turned to see Glenn giving a serious glare. Inside a tea house, he apologized for how he was acting earlier. He just got triggered. The strange person coming to visit today had to do with what they had overheard on the street. These people were with a new religion that's been growing in popularity recently. And this religion supposedly worshipped a deity who was still alive, named Black Snake. Glenn heard she was a red-haired woman, Aspen thought the name sounded a bit ominous, but the religion's followers didn't agree. Glenn's father had just joined the religion as well. And despite how uncharacteristically that seemed of him, the Marquis just wanted to get rid of his past wrongdoings. He believed his sins would get erased, being saved by Blacksnake. Glenn's father had fallen so hard for the cult, he believed his father would probably give their family heirloom. That's why he really was fine with Aspen taking it. Going back to the Black Knight estate another day, she was surprised to hear she was allowed to look around as much as she liked. Sanok was too busy, so he'd leave looking around to her. By nighttime, Sanok asked his servant how long Gloria had been like this. And by this, I mean sleeping on the guest room bed. She slowly opened her eyes, remembering Lefris told her he needed her energy to speed up his investigation. She felt satisfaction from her rest, believing she couldn't have slept that long, but jolted, seeing it was nighttime, and Sanok had been waiting by her side. His glare was icy as he asked why she came into this room. Thinking she was in a bit of a bind, she decided to use the excuse Glenn told her to use, where he explained men were more simple than she thought. She suddenly shouted, "I miss you, your grace!" And that while she wanted to see the heirloom too, she had come up with some kind of excuse to see him again. Sanok told her words were a bunch of nonsense, but chuckled, adding she had a talent for making him want to hear more. This caught her in a flush daze. He asked that she refrain from entering this room in the future, since it held memories for him. When she asked what kind, he told her memories of someone he resented. This caused her heart to thump coldly, hearing he resented her. But it made sense to her. She responded, "Those memories aren't about a woman, right?" And he leaned onto her, in turn, saying, "If they were, are you going to help me forget?" Her eyes widened. She saw a vision of him putting his lips on her that drunken night, and wondered what that memory was just now. She got even more red with mouth agape. Getting up close to her, he thought it was so strange that her face and personality were so different from Aspen's. Yet, he was drawn to her. He got up and told her to head back for now. Taking her leave, she kept thinking about Sanok on top of her, and tried to wave those indecent thoughts away. She accidentally bumped into a veiled woman on her way out, and this woman assured Aspen she herself was just a lowly, insignificant lady, but they would be meeting again. Aspen noticed the woman had red hair and green eyes, the same as her original self. During the carriage ride out, Lefis told Aspen not to be startled, but that woman from earlier was the last divine beast. Aspen couldn't believe it. She had a lot of questions on her mind, one of them being, why was she at Sanok's home at night? In Gloria's room, Lefis would further explain that the last beast didn't transform, but instead became fully human by consuming another human's body. The soul of the human still remained within, but they needed to get the beast out, so her soul wouldn't be damaged. Their next step was to collect the fragments of the beast. Lefis reminded Aspen about Kay telling them of a divine beast that had become an experimental subject and died. 100 years ago, a divine beast crossed over to this world and made a pact with a human they met. They had a relationship like he and Aspen did, but of course, died after being experimented on. Lefis felt the fragments of that dead beast around the capital. If they collected them all, they could stand up to it. Aspen's mood became a bit somber. She felt bad for what the humans had done to the beast. She was originally going to leave the manor as soon as they finished their search, but now realized she'd have to play the role of fiancée a little longer than she expected. A part of her wondered if she was doing this because the last beast was dangerous, or her ties to Sanok. She needed to figure out the relationship between Sanok and the last beast. The next day, visiting Sanok's place, she asked if he had a lover because of the visiting woman from last night. He assured her he'd never do something immoral while being engaged to someone, but in return for his answer, he wanted to know why she was asking. She told him she was jealous, and he sighed, accepting she had her rights as his fiancée, but then stood above her to ask if she was going to do other duties as his fiancée. She asked what kind, and he told her he was joking. In truth, he was keeping that other woman close, being suspicious of her because of that new religion. With Aspen leaving for the day, Sanok pondered why he told her that. This was an ongoing case undergoing investigation. The rule was to keep case-related information a secret from ordinary citizens. There were moments where his feelings and actions acted on their own with Gloria. He wondered why she felt so familiar. Again, a faded memory of a girl flashed in his mind, but he'd sigh, disappointed in being unable to grasp it. Ever since Gloria appeared in his life, he felt constantly confused. He'd be interrupted in his thoughts by his servant, who alerted him that they found a person he'd been inquiring about. The Grand Wizard, Cade, another suspect in this case. Having confirmed the last divine beast was related to the new religion and using its zealots to gather strength, Lephis was impressed. He always thought this beast was sharper than most. Aspen would get ready to see the religious group under a new disguise via Weavy. Thinking about how much Glenn had been supporting her, it reminded Aspen of her dear friend Chloe. Chloe had such a hard time when her father passed. Aspen hoped she wasn't suffering anymore. The new religion had several chapels, but the main one was where Black Snake usually was. However, only those who'd been selected could go there. Aspen decided to visit one of the religion's other branches first. The priest told them, "The Black Snake welcomes everyone." And Aspen was grossed out. This place was like a total cult. Everyone looked so mesmerized. Something definitely felt off. The priest then had attendees unwrap their divine relics, and Aspen saw it was a candle. It suddenly started lighting on its own, and everyone was passing out. A person behind Aspen told her to lower her head and keep quiet. They were going to use an invisibility spell. After exiting the room, Aspen asked who they were and heard a familiar voice tell her it was too dangerous for her to stay there. Chloe revealed herself and that she was investigating this case as a member of the Sky Knights. Lephis then told Aspen he found the first fragment of the beast. It was in the chapel they were just in, embedded on the cross that was hanging on the wall. He told Aspen they had to hurry, but she hesitated. She couldn't remain calm with her old friend standing in front of her. All the memories she tried not to think about were resurfacing. She even remembered Chloe teasing her for acting like she hated the captain, but secretly liked him. Aspen didn't want to remember these things because she was already dead. Chloe was caught off guard hearing Aspen say there was a time she really looked up to the Sky Knights. Aspen could see she was still a sucker for compliments. Aspen would turn, hearing a man ask what was going on, and it was Cleary. He had to remind Chloe again to call him Captain, instead of Dad when they were on duty. Cleary asked if Aspen remembered her. He could tell she was the girl he had met before, despite the different hair color and taller height. He also pointed out it seemed like she knew who he was, yet he had no recollection of ever meeting her before that time they bumped into each other on the street. Chloe would get a signal that it was time to move, and Cleary told Aspen if she left now, they'd consider her an ordinary citizen who came here by chance. But if he ran into her again, he'd assume she was suspicious and find out how she knew his name. Aspen seemed a bit down, but this wasn't the time to get sentimental. She had Weavy turn her invisible again and continued towards the fragment. She knew the Sky Knights usually handled cases on a national scale, or those with the potential to escalate to that level. That meant the rapid growth of this new religion posed a threat to the Imperial family. She assumed Cleary's squad was working in a group of 4, 2 inside and 2 outside. With her sneaking around, she'd overhear the priest ask if they were ready for the gathering. Lephis explained they were extracting negative energy from humans, essentially stealing life force. The stakes were getting higher. Aspen wondered if in order to defeat this divine beast, would they have to destroy this religion altogether? She spotted the fragment and chucked a dagger at it to break it off the cross. Then, with the snap of a man's fingers, an explosion happened in the chapel. The knights were rushing in. Aspen was preparing for her exit, but she'd be stopped by Cleary, with Chloe right beside him. Aspen needed to think fast. That's when the man from earlier grinned, shooting a violent spell. Cleary blocked with a barrier. Cade said, "Oh my, you're a very skilled wizard. That makes things more difficult." Aspen couldn't believe he was here. Cade glanced over, then looked away. Aspen wondered why she felt disappointed. She for some reason expected him to try to flirt with her, just like before. Trying to make a run for it, Cade would bind her, saying, "Hey there, beautiful lady. There's something I need to discuss with you. Could you just wait a minute?" She assumed he must be after the jewel as well. Cleary responded by a wave of his staff, shattering the magic chains on Aspen. He didn't expect to run into the Grand Wizard here. Cade was surprised Cleary knew him. But then again, he was a popular guy. The other knights would break in, much to Cade's dismay. With this interruption, Aspen called Weavy, summoning pillars of ice everywhere so she could escape. Chloe asked why her father helped that girl earlier, and honestly, he wasn't sure. He just felt like he had to for some reason. Outside, Aspen was free, but not out of the clear completely. Weavy didn't have much power left, so while he could cast another invisibility spell, it wouldn't last for long. That's when Cade would greet her, casually offering his help if she needed it. Aspen clenched her fists, but he assured her he wasn't here to fight. She asked if he was after the jewel, and he couldn't say he wasn't. He rushed in front of her, and she wondered how he was going to deal with him. He finally laughed, telling her he'd stop messing around. He was just happy to see her after such a long time. Holding her hand, he told her, "You're still beautiful, Pin." She asked if he still remembered her, but he didn't want them to catch up at the moment, because a pretty annoying person just arrived. Arriving at the temple, Senok would get a full report from Cleary. They detained every wizard working in the chapel, along with their leaders, and raiding the place, they found illegal sleeping pills as well as magical catalysts traded on the black market. Also, the grand wizard they've been chasing turned up as well. Cleary also reported Aspen, describing her as a swordsman with light blue hair and colored glasses. These descriptors sounded different from the last time Senok had seen her. He decided to look into it on his own. We later find Aspen under a black veiled dress. Cade's plan was to have her sit among the congregation, since the area was covered in a wide force field, and if she tried leaving, it would leave a trace of magic. She'd get caught by the Sky Knights. He assured her it'd be fine, since he was watching over her. The man next to her was panicking that he needed blessings to help him fall asleep. She could see this was how the religion manipulated people. She gasped, spotting Senok, realizing this was the annoying person Cade was talking about. Seeing her scrunch up, he became quizzical. Aspen would accidentally bump into the man next to her, and he'd shout, Don't touch me! Do you want to die?" In a flash, Aspen grabbed him by the collar and threw him on the ground. She'd hear Senok say, "Lady Gloria," and oops, she didn't mean to get caught like this. Cade had cast a spell on Aspen earlier to make it harder for people to tell who she was, but for some reason, he couldn't completely transform her like before. It was as if she was already under a spell. Senok asked what she was doing here, and thinking fast, she told him her father seemed to be interested in this religion, so she wanted to look into it, and that he had mentioned it when he was talking about that other woman. Senok thought about how the report he heard on Gloria indicated she'd been away recuperating for a long time due to poor health. This supposedly delicate person was not only skilled, but also physically active. Moreover, noble ladies didn't take matters into their own hands. Even though she was panicking, Senok thought she looked too calm to claim to be jealous. He suddenly asked if she really liked him, and she panicked more, responding, she never said she liked him. He decided they could just talk another time, and let her leave, since she was his fiancée. She then got dropped off at Maud Manor. Cade complimented her quick thinking, asking if she was a marquis's daughter this time. She asked him to tell her what was going on, thinking there's no way he'd remember her. But then, he'd hold her close, telling her he missed her. With him squeezing tight, she started to hear beats. She could hear his heart beating from his firm, wide chest, and this made her blush. She tried pushing him off, but he wouldn't budge. He just wanted to have this a little longer because he missed her so much. But he didn't know she and Senok knew each other already. Inside, she introduced Cade to Glenn, and Cade's expression became devious, seeing another man. But he lightened up quickly. Glenn was taken aback, realizing Cade was the Grand Wizard, and left the two on their own. Aspen wondered why he was so shocked. When she was vice captain, the Grand Wizard's name wasn't even well known. Cade understood the reaction though. It's because he was on the wanted list. Aspen was shocked. He told her the details weren't important. Plus, there were more things she was probably curious about. Having caught up on everything, Cade was fascinated. He didn't know the jewel was related to defeating the last divine beast. He was interested in them because he thought they were related to time travelers. Well, he wasn't entirely wrong. He traveled all across the Empire because he wanted to see her again. In doing so, he somehow became a thief and ended up on the wanted list. As for how he still remembered Aspen after she disappeared 10 years ago, he went to Senok, who couldn't remember her. Senok barely remembered the things that happened between the two of them. Same for Cleary and Senok's maid. It was as if someone put a curse on them. Aspen reminded Cade it was the price paid for saving her parents' lives. And while he wasn't sure why he could still remember her, he answered, maybe his desire was greater than what she paid. He vowed with all his magic that he'd keep his promise to her then. She was thankful. Cade knew if Senok had been a wizard, he probably would have overcame the price Pin had to pay to remember her too. He was so glad he was the Grand Wizard. Talking about the next steps, Aspen told him she was going to the second branch of the religion. Cade decided to tag along, and once this was all done, Aspen could make her wish come true. While Senok slept, he saw himself as a young boy at the house he used to live at. He felt anxious, like he was looking for something, and spotted a pink-haired girl calling his name. She told him if there weren't people who appreciated him, he could just meet people who'd love and appreciate him from now on. Aspen appeared behind him, asking if he was going to forget about her, seeing he was drawn to the pink-haired girl. He then woke up in a sweaty mess, wondering what that dream was about, questioning what this dreadful sense of emptiness and loss he was feeling. The name he called out in his dream was Seeing Senok. Aspen greeted him while sweating. She wondered why he was visiting her so early in the morning. She was glad the Marquis wasn't home. He suddenly asked if she saw a silver-haired man and a blue-haired woman at the chapel yesterday. This got her trembling and shaking. She responded that she fainted pretty early on. To this, he gave a looming look. Reaching for his sword, he swiftly approached, and acting fast, Aspen had a butter knife pointed at his neck. He did this, knowing most noble ladies wouldn't know how to defend themselves like this. He wanted to know who she really was. Realizing she reacted out of reflex, Aspen didn't have much choice. She asked if he had anything he was hiding from her, and he flinched. Why now was Dame Aspen coming to mind? He sighed, admitting truthfully he didn't want to get engaged because he was looking for a woman. There was something he needed to tell that woman, but he didn't think his fiancée would understand. Initially, he was planning to break off their engagement immediately, but wasn't sure why he hadn't felt like doing that now. He kissed her hand, telling her to come to the Imperial Palace or his manor soon to explain what she saw at the chapel, and she agreed. She then asked who the current vice captain of the Sky Guard was. She was ready to hear the truth of what happened after she died. He went eyes wide and answered they didn't have one and there wouldn't be another one, except for the one person he had on his mind. Later, Cade asked why she seemed down, and she told him it was nothing. They were on their mission investigating the second chapel, and Cade put on a disguise, since he was a wanted man. He told her he got recognized more often than one would expect, maybe because of his handsome face. She thought it was just because of his unusual hair color, making him tease being sad, asking if she knew how famous he was for his dashing looks. She was annoyed, dragging him forward, but he hoped his usual playfulness made her a little less blue. She just looked so sad, he was worried. She'd all of a sudden ask if he thought a dead person could come back to life, and he answered it was impossible, but he'd do it if she wanted. Even if he had to change the world to do so, he was going to be here for her from now on, and she was happy. Elsewhere, Senok was in disguise on patrol, making his subordinate Kaylin nervous. This kind of work was for the lower ranks. The number of questions and complaints within the Sky Knights was growing, all because the captain hadn't been coming to work. It all started when the vice captain went missing. Kaylin noticed Senok stopped, and with a frown, he spotted a blonde-haired man with a pink-haired woman. Kaylin remembered Chloe telling him the captain's fiancée had pink hair, and was now biting his nails, thinking she was getting caught with another man. He could see the tabloids. Captain Black Knight getting cheated on? Kate spotted him, but before he could tell Aspen, she already knew they were being tailed. With her answering it seemed like a very skilled knight, he figured she must not know it was Senok. He told her to look behind her, and she jolted, seeing Senok clear as day. The two began to argue, and oh man, Kaylin never thought he'd see the captain jealous. Then, Cade declared himself Aspen's best friend, and Senok's glare deepened. Senok told them he was going with them. Aspen called him controlling, stabbing him right in the chest. And with her walking off with Cade, he looked right back at Senok. Cade was curious, asking why she seemed to know Senok so well. Not just him as a child, but also as the captain of the Sky Knights. He supposed they must have met before they were children. He just wished he had met her first. Instead of heading to the chapel, they detoured to Count Tetherian's manor. From what Aspen gathered, the mysterious woman she met at Senok's manor that one night was the Count's daughter. Lephis popped up to mention he suddenly felt the beast's presence so intensely, he almost wondered why he didn't feel it until now. Laika and Weavy could tell there was a strong barrier, and that the last beast had become way too strong. Aspen was surprised she was granted audience, but wondered why the beast agreed to meet with her so easily. Shortly, Kana Tetherian made her entrance. Hearing Aspen wanting to tell Kana they should get to the point, Kana was taken aback, thinking Aspen's personality was different from what she expected. Kana suddenly told Aspen to break off her engagement with Duke Black Knight, since she didn't love him. Kana then became hysterical, saying she loved him, and that she's loved him for a very long time. Lephis called that a lie. Divine beasts couldn't develop romantic feelings towards humans. Those feelings had to belong to the human whose body was taken by them. Kana wanted to become the Duke's lover or wife. She was willing to do anything to make it happen. She leaned over Aspen, lifting her chin, warning her if she didn't listen, she'd find herself in real danger. Meanwhile, Cade and the other beasts were sleuthing around the mansion, and he'd find what he was looking for in the basement. There was a chest containing a fragment of the divine beast with the same energy as the fragment Pin had shown him. Going to reach for it, a strong barrier stopped him. Most people wouldn't be able to create a magic barrier like this. He pondered if the magic tower was involved here. He cut ties with them looking for Pin, so he didn't know what they'd been up to. He shattered the barrier and took the jewel. It was mission complete. Aspen would try to leave as calmly as she could, but looking back, she wondered what was up with Kanna's insane expression. By herself, Kanna thought she had felt Lephis and assumed Gloria was the time traveler. Heading to another fragment, Aspen and Cade would arrive at another branch of the new religion, disguised as an auction house. The services were held in the basement. Like all the other branches, they were luring people in by disguising the building as something else. The two made their way through easily, as there were no guards, and eventually found the fragment embedded in a cross. Aspen grabbed it, and felt things were going a little too smoothly. That's when a robed man asked if she was coming out now, and that man was none other than Senok. He wanted to know why Aspen was here. She was in a precarious predicament. If the Marquis got alerted, this would cause trouble for Glenn and Gloria. She decided to turn herself in and go with him. She just asked he let Cade go. Senok accepted, but before Cade took off, he grabbed Aspen by the shoulder, telling her, "Thank you for saving me, darling." He'd do this, then look at Senok to get a reaction. Needless to say, the captain wasn't happy. But Kalen was enjoying the drama. Cade then brought up that he's heard engagements between noble families were usually arranged, so having lovers wasn't necessarily frowned upon. Aspen's jaw dropped over the tense air as Cade took his leave. Senok thought he'd heard that annoying manner of speaking somewhere before. Cade thought it was too bad, since the person their princess was trusting with valuable possessions was him. He kissed the fragment, thinking it was too late for Senok to have regrets, because while Senok was out of the picture, he was going to get ahead of him. Sitting face to face with Senok, it felt like deja vu. Knowing his personality better than anyone, Aspen couldn't keep making up silly excuses. She told him she was in the process of collecting something the religious group had stolen. The object was related to divine beasts, so she had no choice but to break in. She didn't care if he didn't believe her anymore. She just didn't want to deceive him. There it was again. Senok saw her resemblance to Aspen. She had said something just like this to him before. He told her from now on, he'd be accompanying her, and there was no option for her to decline. Plus, he needed to know who that man was. Aspen knew Cade wasn't going to like this, but the three of them being together again felt so nostalgic. Senok promised not to get in her way, so long as she answered this question. He wanted to know what her relationship was with that man. She didn't know why Senok was asking her this, but she hesitantly responded, "We're friends." She wasn't sure what was going on, but supposed it was all good now. She'd then get up to take her leave, and he quickly grabbed her arm, offering tea before she left. He wasn't looking at her straight, but he wanted to share a new blend he got with her. At the Royal Knight's headquarters, Ralph, an Imperial wizard, expressed his frustration over Senok's refusal to come to work, claiming their captain abandoned them purely out of obstinance, all because Aspen disappeared. Ralph thought it was wrong, since they had nothing to do with her leaving, but Kalen knew the Knights had everything to do with it. They made things unbearable for her here. Kalen was just an ordinary knight when Aspen was around, but even he could tell how bad the class discrimination was amongst the Royal Knights. The insults and bullying that she endured were so severe, he was impressed she lasted as long as she did. A woman from a fallen noble family with no connections and a terrible scar on her face? Despite these circumstances, she became vice captain based on her skill alone. Kalen looked up to her. He understood how Senok felt. Ralph asked if it would be alright if he continued his research on the mythical creatures. Kalen figured these guys must have conducted research without getting the captain's permission again. He thought these old wizards were truly awful. Senok needed to come back, or things would turn disastrous. Cade knew Senok would find a way to butt in with him and Aspen, given what happened in the basement. He told her just the two of them should do the preliminary research, and call Senok after. He wanted some time alone with her, reminding Aspen she said he was her best friend. He told her to make him feel special. This made her red. She didn't know how to react in situations like this, saying she's never had many friends and never been the touchy-feely type. To this, he kissed her hand, saying that was bad for other people and great news for him, since only he knew how endearing she could be. She smiled with an air of sadness, thinking he felt this way because he didn't know how ugly she really looked. After they left, the butler was surprised to find Gloria's room empty. He'd report this to Marquis Gowd, who had been fine leaving her alone as a fake replacement for Gloria, but knew they couldn't do this indefinitely. Nolan, the Marquis' younger brother, would ask to see his niece since it had been 15 years since he'd last seen her. This posed a problem for the Marquis, knowing his brother knew Gloria's face looked exactly like her mother's. Getting denied, Nolan could tell his brother was hiding something. At the third branch of the new religion, Aspen and the gang felt like something wasn't right here. This place seemed much more peaceful than the previous branches. Weavy and Flea thought something felt familiar with the children here. Before they went in, Cade wanted to know Aspen's real name. He was curious about her life before she met him, and wanted to hear the details from her. She looked down, uttering, Aspen Swar, then looked up, to admit she was the vice captain of the Royal Knights of the Sky Guard. She got caught off guard, seeing that he wasn't surprised. He in turn shrugged. It's not like she was surprised when he told her he was the disciple of the Grand Wizard. She then asked why he tried to understand everything about her, and thinking back to when he told her he liked her, he reminded her he gave the answer a long time ago. He'd just been waiting for her to notice. She then told him everything, how she died, the day her life completely changed. He, as a result, wanted to know what happened to her body. If she died getting hit by a carriage, why hadn't anyone discovered it? Lefis would reveal that the coachman who hit her fled the scene immediately. So no one dragged her body away. He indeed took her soul out of her body, and if he hadn't, she wouldn't have been reincarnated. But there was a chance her body was still alive. Aspen didn't know what he meant by that. She squeezed Lefis, demanding to know what he did to her. And so, Lefis explained some additional concepts about divine beasts. In this dimension, they were considered foreign objects. Thus, time travelers were seen as accidents caused by these foreign objects. So, to manage the aftermath of these accidents, they sometimes leave dummies behind. Essentially, after a divine beast takes someone's soul, the person's fate is transferred to an empty body. There was a possibility Aspen's body moved on its own, based on its physical memory without a soul inside. These dummies have a lifespan of 3 months, after which the dimension takes care of them by crafting a new fate, allowing them to reintegrate into the cycle without issues. Aspen shouted at him, asking why he was just telling her this now. Well, turns out he forgot about it. The last time he had seen a traveler with a mythical beast, they'd been killed by humans. Aspen was fine, because at least she knew now, and told all the beasts. Whatever they thought of her, she thought of all of them as companions. That's why she was trying so hard to find the fragments. Lefis told her he'd remember that. Continuing their mission, it was weird how everything at this branch seemed normal, until she noticed there were a lot of children here. The beasts talked it over. The kids had an energy similar to theirs. Before proceeding to the basement, Aspen would learn the last beast had many different powers, but one of them was mental corruption, or brainwashing. They spotted a child running happily, but when the members of the temple would grab him and complain that all he did was laugh and run away, the boy would freeze, struggle, and shout that he didn't want to go back. He cried for his mother. Aspen was pissed. She didn't think they would target children. Following them, they found a prison. The kids stayed here under brainwashing. Aspen decided they needed to assess the situation further before rescuing them. They'd find the boy from earlier, lying asleep on a slab, with robed men surrounding him. One of the men would assure them success was in reach. They just needed to fuse the divine jewel with one of the kids. Then, they could create a living deity. Cade mentioned there were a lot of wizards who had no sense of ethics, beholden to the obsessions of their research. One of the men was laughing, ecstatic that this would be a great help to all the experimental subjects at headquarters. And seeing his sleeve, Aspen identified this man as a member of the Sky Knights. She wondered if there was corruption going on. 1 hour prior, Kalen reported details to Senok about the next branch they'd be investigating. He told Senok about how a few of the Royal Knights had been acting strange lately, conducting odd experiments on mythical creatures. But Senok surprisingly already knew about it. He had given the order a while ago to forbid experimentation on mythical creatures. He didn't know why. He just felt like he needed to for some reason. And now, he was going to punish the religious scum amongst the Royal Knights. Getting ready to head out, he wondered if he should tell Gloria, but thinking of her reminded him that she fell asleep in the guest's bedroom. She entered that room without hesitation, but there was something he had forgotten about it. A while ago, he had a wizard place a spell on the room to make sure no one could enter without permission. He didn't want his memories with Aspen to ever disappear, yet for some reason, Gloria was able to. He started laughing maniacally, as if he finally put it all together. Aspen quickly drafted a plan. Then, she and Cade split up. she took Leica and transformed, using his fire to burn and create a commotion amongst the robed men. Her plan was to buy Cade time while he rescued the children. She struck and shot a huge flame wave that the enemy wizards blocked, but it couldn't be staved completely because it was real fire and not just magic. A swordsman came lunging at her, and she knocked him out, taking his sword and lighting it aflame. Weavy grabbed the boy, and Lephis got the jewel. But seeing the two things floating in the air, the royal knight wizard grinned. Kana had told him mythical creatures were invisible to the human eye, and that if he ever ran into them, to use the jewel she gave him. He placed it in his staff, and Aspen felt a shock in her body. Lephis shouted for her to separate from Leica now, but she was overwhelmed. She staggered over, coughing up blood. The wizard was elated, calling to capture the mythical creature, and shot a binding spell that Lephis was able to block. Aspen only thought about how she needed to get to Cade. The man before her, who she knocked down, prepared a spell to finish her. But Aspen smiled, hearing a man say, "You're always like this. You always do as you please." It was Senok, with the rest of his knights backing him up. He had the traitors reprimanded quickly. One of the enemies ran towards Aspen, shouting, "Die, you wench!" But before he could strike her, Senok pierced him with his blade, ending his life. Aspen rushed to his side, worried about his injury, asking why he got hit when he could have easily avoided it. He smiled, telling her she'd been giving him hints the entire time. Touching her face, he looked at her with pure endearment, saying, "It's been a while, my dearly missed one." She didn't hear him say that though. Apparently, he spoke too quietly. She put him on her shoulder, asking if he was hurt. It didn't actually hurt that much, but he closed his eyes, deciding to play it up a bit. Aspen would watch as their arrested men were being sent off. Kalen offered her a drink, introducing himself as the royal knight and aide to the captain. She was impressed. The last time she saw him, he was just a regular knight, inquiring on how it was possible for some of the knights to be in on this experiment without Senok's knowledge. Her heart sank, learning Senok hadn't been coming to work since the vice captain went missing. Kalen explained Senok cherished vice captain Aspen more than anyone. He panicked, adding, as colleagues, since he probably shouldn't be saying this to Senok's fiancée. Aspen felt a wave of guilt about this. Cleary then went to see Aspen next. Cutting to the chase, he asked if she had ever entered a pact with a mythical creature. He wasn't trying to accuse her of anything, but had been getting a strange feeling whenever he thought of them. He just wanted to know if she knew anything, and if they had crossed paths before their encounter on the street. Averting his gaze, she told him he might have seen her older sister or something, and that she was a girl who used to lead a very peaceful life. Cleary accepted the answer for now, but still wondered why he had the urge to help her in some way. By sunset, Senok opened his eyes to Aspen, asking if he was awake. He asked why she was in his bedroom, and learned Kalen begged her to stay with him until he woke up. He was thinking, man, he needed to reward Kalen with a vacation. Aspen was worried despite knowing he wasn't in life-threatening danger. He probably still experienced pain. He suddenly caressed her face and smiled at her. Senok wondered why she was hiding the truth from him, but it was alright. He pulled her hand to his face, made her jaw drop. Anything was better than when he thought she was dead. She asked him what he was doing, and he responded, "You're my fiancé, are you not?" She was caught off guard, hearing him say, "Then stay by my side." She was fine helping him with whatever he wanted, but why did it have to be on the bed? He told her it hurt, and she got more worried. Now he could see Aspen's tender care, like he'd always known. He told her it hurt a lot, both his body and heart, that he'd been waiting for her much too long. He really missed her. She was confused because they saw each other yesterday. He kept caressing her, and when she asked, he assured it helped calm him down. They say nothing compared to sharing body warmth. Aspen didn't know how to describe it, but Senok seemed strangely softer. After he fell asleep, she couldn't believe he kept her up so late. When she came home, Cade arrived shortly, explaining he had the children go with the Sky Knights, where they'd be returned to their homes safely. Then showed her the logs from the experiments. Turns out, the traitorous knights had built a secret base to conduct experiments. He posed the idea that her body might be at this base too. While they were chatting, the Marquis's brother, Nolan, was sneaking to get in to check on his niece. Aspen would catch him at the door, and hearing him say her name, she figured he must be someone Gloria knew. Glenn quickly cut in, asking if his uncle needed something. Nolan made the excuse that he got lost, and so the maid escorted him out. What they didn't know was that Nolan was using a magical listening device to spy on them, but Cade caught on to it immediately. Glenn was scared the jig was up, but Aspen had a plan. The next day, she went to visit Senok, and suddenly asked what would happen if she wasn't his fiancée. He wanted her to clarify, Was this hypothetical situation where she wasn't the real Gloria Gowd? Or was there another lady at House Gowd? She wondered how he caught on so fast. He figured the correct thing to do would be to provide grounds to break up their engagement. But he wouldn't let that happen because he liked her a lot and didn't want anyone else. This made her heart feel funny, but she understood his position on this better now. We turned to Nolan, who felt something was off about Gloria. He thought about reporting potential marriage fraud to Duke Black Knight. The next day, while Cade and Aspen were getting ready for their mission, Senok was pouty, asking how long Aspen had been in contact with a wanted fugitive. With him glaring at Cade's hand on her shoulder, she was worried Senok was going to arrest Cade. But Cade had already told her it was going to be fine ahead of time. He still thought of Senok as a loyal friend. Plus, the Imperial family and Sky Knights weren't the ones who placed a bounty on him. It was the Magic Tower. To be more exact, Cade's master. Cade teleported them, and they arrived at the Swar estate. Senok had questions, but Cade would cut in before they could get into complicated dialogue. They met with Aspen's parents, who explained Aspen had come and gone recently. She said there was something she needed to do. Aspen was surprised that the empty shell of her body could speak. The parents were worried about Aspen, but they knew she was resilient with a strong sense of justice. They trusted she'd be able to make it through anything. Aspen clenched her dress. She thought about the happy life she could have had if her parents were alive growing up. They were more than fine talking to her since she was friends with Duke Black Knight. They were indebted to him for all the ways he helped them since falling out of nobility. Lefis did say this timeline was messed up. Despite being alive, the Swars still fell out of nobility. Their lands experienced persistent droughts, leading to the county's decline. Elsewhere, in the manor, Senok asked why Cade was with Aspen, referring to her not as Gloria, but actually Aspen. Cade laughed, answering, "So you found out?" Senok demanded he answered, and Cade responded, "What if I don't want to?" He told Senok to figure it out himself, since it wouldn't be fair if he just told him. Senok had no idea the price Cade had to pay, but he planned to take it all. Senok sighed, feeling deja vu, as if he had been here before as a child, with Cade and another person. Aspen suddenly flashed in his mind. Aspen thought back to her mother saying Aspen had to leave to see someone. Aspen couldn't believe she said something like that. Lefis reasoned her body probably moved out of the last lingering wish she had in her life. That still didn't clear things up for Aspen. She remembered her last wish was to become free after defeating the captain. Either way, she figured her body was probably being stored in the secret base of the Royal Knights Wizards. Cade hypothesized if her body still remained, she might be able to come back to life. Back at the Royal Knights headquarters at the Imperial Palace, Nolan learned from the current Vice Captain Sherman that Senok was out at the moment. Sherman remembered Nolan was Marquis Gowd's brother and wanted to know if he had heard anything about a god or mythical creatures. Aspen returned home and thought more about Kana. Lefis told her he might be able to find out a way to get the owner of the body to come back to her senses if he physically touched her. The other beasts decided to munch on some food, and Aspen became wary, feeling someone's gaze. Nolan was spying on them. Sherman gave him a simple magical device to capture footage of Gloria, and if he found anything strange and reported it to him, he'd be compensated well. Glenn would suddenly tell Aspen she got an urgent notice to see Senok. At his place, she asked if something serious had happened, and he told her no, he just missed her. He just got the feeling that today she might disappear again. She kept disappearing on him. Her eyes widened as he referred to her as Pin and told her he missed her. She tried to deny it, but he told her to stop. He knew she was the Pin he met as a child, and also the vice captain he's been desperately looking for. He wasn't sure why she showed up in his life as Gloria, but he remembered everything now. Aspen wondered what was going on. She thought everyone was supposed to forget her as the price for keeping her parents alive, but Cade remembered her, and now Senok too. Even Cleary seemed to vaguely remember things. She worried there was more to pay. She glanced over at Lefis, but he didn't say anything. Senok would tell her they could talk more about things tomorrow. Since it had been long since he started remembering, she kept appearing in his dreams, and when he opened his eyes, he wanted to see her face. He was scared she'd disappear again. Aspen was at a loss. She didn't know if she was supposed to see him as Senok from when he was a child or as her captain. With Cade visiting her, he explained how he was able to remember. After she disappeared, he felt an overwhelming power surrounding him and his memories disappearing little by little. So he put a spell on himself, extracting his memory and choosing to remember just one word. And by hearing that word, he'd remember everything. That word was Pin, her name. It was a word that was pretty common to hear at any time. He sacrificed his lifespan to use that spell. He was still young and inexperienced then. So, that was the only method he knew to use. He liked her then, and he liked her now. Aspen remembered Senok had said the same thing to her once as well. She was grateful for the two of them for liking her, but strangely, her heart wasn't fluttering. She apologized. He told her not to. He didn't confess his feelings for her to feel bad. As long as he was by her side, that was enough. Later, Aspen would bring up there was something else she gave up to keep her parents alive, and Lefis confirmed it. He couldn't tell her what it was, because that was part of the price too. She felt somewhat betrayed, believing there was more trust between them than this. But he told her, regardless of what she wished, he was a divine beast and could never be like a human. That night, she was filled with a bitter loneliness. The next morning, Glenn came running into Aspen's room to protect her. The Knights were here carrying out orders. Aspen was under arrest for being an impostor to a noble family and deceiving Duke Black Knight. She was expecting this, based on what Cade told her, but couldn't believe the Sky Guard was here. She decided to go with him, but felt something was off. Before she was taken away, Senok commanded them to stop. He told them all the claims were baseless, and this was something the Sky Guards shouldn't be involved in. Picking up Aspen, he told them he'd be taking his fiancée now. All the while, Cade was searching for the last beast fragment. He'd feel a chill, sensing an outsider just entered the barrier he set around Pin's room. Before he could take off, his master would ask where he was going and wanted to talk about the sample documents he had stolen. In the Black Knight Manor guest room, Senok told Aspen to wait for him here. She'd be safe, since this place was off limits to anyone but him and one special person. She felt somewhat uncomfortable, since she fell asleep here, and it was also the place she spent the night with him. He was going to go deal with the Sky Knights and figure out who had the audacity to take action without his order. After he took off, she forgot to ask who that special person was. Then remembered the only other person who entered this room was her when she was vice captain. She got super red. That night, she had a little too much to drink with Chloe, pissed because her ideas got rejected again. She vented her frustration about everyone looking down on her being from a fallen noble house, and everyone detesting her because of her face. With her passing out at the table, Senok arrived and took her back to his place. She woke up surprised to see he'd been waiting with tons of drinks and luxurious appetizers. He explained Dame Chloe was escorted home by her family, and he was going to take Aspen back to the woman's dormitory. But she kept yelling loudly that she wanted another drink. Since tomorrow was their day off, he told her she could drink until she passed out. She immediately went for more, not caring, because it's not like she had a family to look after her anyway. She told him she really didn't like him, but questioned why she couldn't hate him. She tried hard to make sure people didn't look down on her for not having parents, and admitted having felt like one big ball of insecurities. She was about to ask why everyone hated her, but Senok cut her off, telling her he didn't. He liked how diligent she was. She was always the first one to show up and the last one to leave. She was also the first one to notice the bullying going on with the new knight. Moreover, she was the only one he considered an equal match for him. Tears began to drip down Aspen's face. She laughed, wondering why no one else said anything like this to her, except for him. He told her it was because he liked her. Aspen froze, mouth agape, and answered that she respected him too. Senok got up and chuckled, telling her it was a bit different from that. While he did respect her, he wanted to do things like this. He put his lips on hers, and when their lips parted, they were eye to eye. He apologized, saying he was also drunk, but she suddenly grabbed him, telling him to do it again because it felt nice. They kissed over and over until they made it to the guest bedroom, with him on top of her, shirt coming off. Staring at Senok as he gently caressed her hair, she told him she regretted meeting him because from this day forward, she didn't think she'd be able to escape from him. Hearing this, he felt obliged to give her his all, so that way she'd remember this night forever. After going until Aspen passed out, Senok stared at her in bed, whispering words like, "I love you. You're the most noble person in the world to me. I want to give you everything in the world. I would give up everything for you. So please, don't be so hard on yourself." He held her close to snuggle and fall asleep. Just as he said, the night was truly a happy one for Aspen. She vowed to tell him that, not realizing she'd forget everything in the morning. Present day, Aspen was shrieking after she finally remembered. She couldn't believe she actually forgot. She was then greeted by Senok's personal butler. This woman had always treated her with kindness, even in her past life. With Senok taking the food the butler delivered, the woman stopped her, explaining that initially, there was only one other person permitted in this room by her master, and that Senok dreamed of marrying that person. After the person he loved disappeared, Senok devoted himself entirely to searching for her, even falling into a trap that used his beloved as fake bait. She told Aspen she didn't think it was a good idea for her to marry a man who was deeply in love with someone else. After the butler left, Aspen fell to the floor. She didn't think anyone would be sad if she died. She didn't think anyone would miss her. But finding out the truth was quite different. She couldn't stop crying. She didn't hate the captain at all. Her in the past loved him very much. Lephis would then come floating in, telling her he found the last fragment. The two would look out the window and see both wizards and knights here. Aspen now figured they were here because the last divine beast knew she was a time traveler. So, it teamed up with the Sky Knights to get her by any means necessary. Aspen decided to get caught on purpose, to hopefully get taken to where the last fragment was. She'd suddenly get stopped by Senok grabbing her, huffing out of breath. As he asked where she was going, he would tell her he was never letting go of her again, because he loved her, putting his lips on hers. But she wondered why she couldn't feel anything. She glanced at Lephis, and he could see she finally figured it out. In exchange for saving her parents' lives, she lost the most precious thing to her. She thought back to her intimate moment with Senok, and began to weep. The past her must have loved the captain deeply. That's why she lost her love in exchange. Now, all she could feel was emptiness and sadness. She apologized to Senok, telling him she didn't think she could give an answer to his confession as Pin. She hoped when she came back to life, he'd make new memories with her then. He clenched his fist, accepting with pain. Escorting her out, they came across Cade, hunched over and covered in blood. He got into a minor scuffle with his master, and was now looking up at Senok. Since having heard everything, he was happy the two of them were at the same starting line. Senok was not happy about that. With Aspen promising she'd stay by Senok's side, he patted her head. This in turn made Cade feel lousy. He'd lean on to Aspen and tell her he also loved her, and she apologized because she's lost the ability to love. She told him she'd make sure to take responsibility for the lifespan he lost. So, he grabbed her shoulders and looked at her squarely. He realized right now, all she could feel was a sense of duty towards him. But he'd gladly take her sympathy nonetheless. He was desperate, asking if they collected the fragments, would her emotions come back? When she answered she didn't know, he told her, "Choose me, and if you pick Senok, you can always come to me when you get tired of him." Aspen gasped. She wondered if she'd ever be able to recover her feelings of love. Cade then used a spell to instantly heal himself, then explained he might have found her body, and that it was with the Sky Knights. He heard they were planning on using it for an experiment right away, so they needed to get it before it was gone. They explained the situation to Senok, and that the fragment was at the Northwestern Temple. The place had been deserted for a long time. It was where a crazy serial killer committed his murders, so naturally, people started avoiding it. Senok asked Cade if he could teleport them there, considering he had suffered such a big wound earlier. The two guys gave each other the continued gaze of rivalry, and asking Senok to heal Cade with House Black Knight's personal wizard. Turns out, he already put in the request. That night, while Aspen lay in bed, she thought about the look of scorn the wizards expressed when Senok chased them away. She couldn't believe Senok knew who she was, and was so embarrassed, remembering all she did pretending to be his fiancée. He'd sit by and stare at Aspen with a look of endearment as she covered her face. He touched her head, asking if she was ill. She asked why he was smiling, and he told her because he was happy. Maybe it was because he'd been desperately searching for her for so long, but this time he got to spend with her felt like a dream. She admitted to him that in exchange for keeping her parents alive, she lost the ability to love someone, and that she was probably in love with him in the past. But now, that feeling was gone. She felt bad, knowing she might never be able to love someone again. He cut in, telling her he was happy with a one-sided love. If she ever recalled those feelings, that would be good too. But he just couldn't be without her, no matter what. He received a letter from someone when she disappeared. It claimed they had possession of her and told him to come meet them alone. When he got there, he realized it was a trap, and as a result, he was severely wounded and fell close to death. Lying in a pool of his own blood, he thought he'd be fine dying there if it meant she was actually at that location. She didn't know what to say to that. After he left, Aspen pondered deeply about what Senok told her, and shortly strengthened her resolve for the mission. At midnight, they left for the abandoned northern temple. Senok explained they'd be infiltrating the lab from two different directions, but the Sky Guard would basically be acting as bait. The rest of the Royal Knights would remain outside on standby. Their only goal was to secure the fragment of the mythical creature, and they wanted to avoid combat if possible. Cade scanned the place with magic, but didn't detect any people inside who could have been captured to be used as experimental subjects. But they couldn't be too sure. Proceeding, Aspen had an eerie feeling. Lephis explained it was due to the contaminated energy. From borrowing their powers, she now had the energy of divine beasts within her. Senok would suddenly stop in front, spotting a corpse. This corpse wore the uniform of the Sky Knights. Even though the place seemed strangely empty, Aspen could feel the presence of an ominous lump. The trio went in further until they were eventually welcomed by Kana. She told them there was no need to be wary. She just wanted to create a place for them to be able to talk. She then gestured her hand towards the unconscious knights who were sent to infiltrate, assuring they were just enjoying some sweet dreams. Cade raised his staff and immediately shot a powerful beam, but Kana deflected it with an ominous-looking barrier. Aspen called for Weavy, and transforming, she was going to use his powers to freeze everything. However, with a single step, Kana closed the distance and ended up behind her. But Senok would cover Aspen, having his blade pointed at Kana. Kana jumped back, teasing. That hurt her feelings. She tried hard to win his heart, after all, taking his stance. He called bullshit. She asked if he really thought so, as she forced the fallen knights to rise. Cade would shoot some down, while Senok clashed head-on. Aspen panicked watching them, but gasped, with Kana reaching towards her chest. Intense sword aura erupted, and Senok instantly blocked Kana's reach. Knocking her back, Aspen made quick steps, swinging her wand to deflect Kana's next strike. She told the boys she was fine as she continued her duel with Kana. She dodged Kana and responded with ice, clashing with her claws some more. Thinking she knew Kana gained power after her corruption, but she was also absurdly strong. Weavy couldn't hold on much longer. His weapon was going to shatter soon, and supposed she'd have to call her real sword soon. But that's when Lephis cut in, telling her he'd help. Seeing the light of the Master of Beasts, Kana's eyes widened. She couldn't believe this was happening. The bright light took Aspen into a manor. She didn't know where she was, but spotted a woman crying because she's failed yet again. Aspen thought at first this was the divine beast, but noticing the color of her hair and eyes were different, she figured this must be the real Kana Tetherian. Kana continued to weep, going, Why? Why can't it be me? Light flashed again, and Aspen was taken to where Kana was watching Senok and passed Aspen at the night training grounds. Aspen was taken aback, seeing herself smile so brightly towards the captain. Kana was depressed, however. Lights flashed once again, and Aspen would be taken to where Kana was being rejected at Senok's house. Kana tried reasoning the vice captain was missing and possibly dead, but Senok told her to mind her words. He believed Aspen was alive. Senok told Kana straight that he couldn't be with anyone else. He loved Aspen too deeply. That's why he would never accept her love or her desire to be engaged to him. Kana continued to weep, wondering if it was because she didn't have red hair. Was it because her eyes weren't green? Or was it because she wasn't Aspen? That's when the veiled, otherworldly being would say, Oh, you poor thing. Do you want my help? I can make you look like her. I'll even make that man be yours. But in exchange, I need your everything. I need your body, your heart, and your soul. As Kana began to reach and accept this Faustian pact, Aspen grabbed her hand, telling her to stop. She told Kana not to let her life be stolen like this. Kana stared blankly, seeing Dame Aspen within this girl. She tried to tell Aspen she had no right to say this, but Aspen cut her off, telling Kana she better come out to the real world and slap her face or something, while deflecting the beast's attack. She asked Kana if she was really going to let this creature steal everything from her. Kana watched as Aspen told her to just live her life. Lephis then came back, telling Aspen it was time. As they left this inner psyche, Aspen told Kana they'd save her, and also brown hair suited her more. When Aspen returned, she found Kana magically constrained, with Cade and Senok holding an offensive stance. With Kana rattling in the chains, Aspen thought they had the edge. A jewel appeared, floating out from Kana's body. They assumed that had to be the last fragment. Senok would make a dash for it and take it within his hands. Now, they just needed to defeat the last beast. But, looking back at Kana, Aspen wondered why she was smirking. Lephis would shout, that wasn't a divine beast fragment, and it exploded into a red liquid on Senok's hand. Watching the whole affair had Kana snickering deviously. A huge magic circle layered over the floor, summoning way more men than before. It was a trap. She got them right where she wanted, and their backup outside was useless. Cleary and the others were surrounded as well. Kana's mindless puppets shot a blast at Cade, which he blocked, but our heroes could tell it'd be difficult to get out of this without killing Kana. Aspen would suddenly ask Senok and Cade if they could escape on their own. She had a plan, and it was to let them capture her. We moved to Aspen being escorted at the Sky Knight headquarters in chains. The floor echoed every step she took. This was the Wizard Corps building of the Sky Guard, while the men around spoke in hushed whispers about her being the offering. Aspen would tell Lephis to go look around the premises for the Divine Beast fragment. Kana would make a swipe of her finger to check Aspen for Lephis. Seeing no sign of him, she told Aspen she missed him. Aspen responded that if she got captured by Lephis, she could be with him forever. But Kana couldn't let that happen, because then she wouldn't be the sole focus of his attention. She was going to gain enormous power here and have him under her possession. Aspen thought she was really crazy and asked if Kana should even be telling her this. Kana didn't care. She knew Aspen was going to die soon, and with her death, Senok would fall apart and become susceptible to brainwashing. The beast possessing Kana was going to let the real Kana have the man she wanted. Aspen would startle Kana, telling her she was doing all this for petty reasons, and that killing a person to possess her guardian was pathetic and idiotic. At the same time, Cleary, under Senok's order, was using his magic to blast a hole in the wall from the outside. Kana's jaw dropped, feeling the explosion. Cade would use lightning magic to quickly free Aspen from her bindings, and with that, Aspen smirked, knowing it was all working perfectly. Another explosion distracted Kana, and in that moment, Aspen would transform using Leica. Back at the temple, the boys sighed, hearing Aspen's plan to let them take her so she could find the last fragment and her body. It was there, Cade explained, that most magical devices were vulnerable to lightning magic. She smashed the ground with waves of electricity, reaching everywhere until she found her target. The wizards surrounding her real body were panicking. Aspen then quickly flashed out of the room where Kana was in, jumped down through a hole she made with the lightning, and landed into the basement where she finally found her body. Sherman appeared, telling her, "It's been a long time, former vice captain." He didn't expect her to be hiding in a different body, but he was going to end that here and make good use of her soul and the mythical creatures. He wanted to make her pay for interrupting their experiments. Sherman shot a huge bolt of magic, and Aspen braced for impact, but would be protected by a magic circle, and a foot would pin Sherman down. Senok always told Sherman wizards should be on guard against melee attacks, and put him under arrest for conducting illegal experiments, along with conspiring with a cult. Aspen was happy to see Cade as well, and told him to take over, while she'd sprint, charging lightning with her fists and smashing the tube that held her body. Shattering it, Aspen finally had possession of herself. Sherman continued to struggle, asking Kana what she thought she was doing. She was supposed to cooperate with them. She thought he was so impatient, because the main character always showed up at the end. Kana used her final gambit, summoning ghoulish, shadowy creatures, even changing the way Sherman was. Her goal was to swallow everyone here. Lephis explained Kana was using up all the power she'd been storing up. If they didn't stop her now, she'd destroy the capital. But he had the solution. Flea came flying in with the last fragment. Normally, Lephis couldn't use powers beyond what was permitted, but with all the fragments gathered, he could just once. Kana, meanwhile, was getting squeezed. She needed more time to build her power and get herself together. The spirits of the wizards she swallowed were stirring violently inside of her. She laughed psychotically, screaming Lephis's name, asking where he was. A golden light would radiate, and Aspen transformed with the combined powers of the Master of Beasts. Kana paused, seeing Aspen's new form, and told her to get away from her Lephis. Aspen suddenly coughed blood and collapsed on the floor. His power was too much for her. Kana used the opportunity to strike, but Aspen barely deflected it. Every second she used these powers, it hurt. Lephis explained it was because they hadn't fully fused yet. They just needed a little more time. She staggered, and with Kana reaching to end her, Senok would block and get pierced through the chest. The strike was so severe, Senok collapsed. It began to rot his body. Senok wasn't supposed to die, but whatever, it couldn't be helped. She was going to now kill everyone, except for Lephis. Aspen would pick Senok up and gently set him down. Where Cade scrambled to heal him, Cade flinched. Senok wasn't breathing. He began doing everything he could to bring Senok back. Kana was ecstatic. She had accumulated powers stronger than Lephis. She wanted him to be hers, and only hers. is what she shouted as she raised a huge orb of destructive magic. She threw it straight towards Aspen, but in that moment, Aspen would summon a blade of light. Lephis told her it was finally ready and gave her the weapon she was most familiar with. In a quick succession of slashes, Aspen dissipated Kana's attack, then made a beeline straight for her. She charged up and unleashed an almighty destructive swing that erupted the entire building. With that, Kana was bound. Lephis explained he considered allowing the destruction the last beast desired. It was because the first beast that had come to this world was not only the first he met, but also someone who was like a child to him. It was killed by humans. The time he spent with Aspen and the others, however, changed his opinion. So, he's decided to give the humans another chance. He thanked Aspen for everything. Aside from returning her body, he wanted to grant her another wish. But she had to choose. She could revive her past feelings of love or bring Senok back to life. Aspen's heart sank. She remembered those dear moments she had with Senok, but knew there was only one answer. Senok's light would surround Senok and then put her back into her original body. Lephis would touch her face and completely remove her scar. Although he couldn't return her past love, he hoped the rest of her life was full of it. Weavy squealed, picking up Laika, who was picking up Flea, because it was time to leave, and kissing Aspen's forehead. Lephis told her, "I truly hope that you're happy from now on, my child." Following the events, Aspen would write a letter to her parents. It read, "My dearest father and mother, have you been well? A week has passed since I saw you two for the first time in a long time. I'm doing well. I guess you can say I've been busy with many things. Oh, I also formally quit as vice captain of the Sky Knights. Sir Cleary has taken over my position. Oh, right. I made a new friend, too. She's not in the best condition right now, but I'm looking forward to getting to know her better. Apart from all this, a lot has happened." We see as Aspen was taking her things, she'd come across the knights who berated her in the beginning. Kalen apologized, not having done enough about their behavior, but admitted he always looked up to her. Aspen wondered why she never realized that she was loved by so many people. Outside, she waved happily, calling Senok and Cade. The divine beasts went back to their original world. Earlier, Aspen was sad they had to go, but Lephis told her she could see them whenever she wished. He had to go back for now though, since he'd been away for too long. Lephis also said the last beast would pay for its wrongdoings. Aspen uttered, "It's so peaceful," but not for Senok. He'd been buried under paperwork. There were a lot of knights protesting with her resignation. Aspen laughed, saying, "It must be quite a headache for you, Captain." But he leaned over her, telling her it was Senok, not Captain, and that since she brought him back to life, he was both hers in body and heart. Ooh, she still wasn't used to that. Cade smacked Senok's hand off. Of course, their rivalry was never going to end. He had to add that he's also been busy turning down requests to become the head of the Magic Tower. And Senok would tell him it was only happening because he reported his master to the authorities. The two's bickering was endless. Aspen laughed. Her feelings of loving one man never returned. But thanks to the help of the divine beasts, she'd be able to love anyone from now on. She suddenly told them, "I want to live together with the both of you." The two thought she had to be joking, but played along. Even though all the time Senok spent waiting was in vain, he'd give up his title as a duke, so it didn't get in the way. Cade told her he wanted to be the first husband. Senok would argue that he wanted to be first husband, and he wasn't backing down. Aspen knew it sounded like a joke, but only happiness awaited them. Cade would hold her from behind, while Senok gently kissed her hand. She was happy for the bright future that awaited them. Wow, what a weird ending. I can't believe this series ended in reverse harem. Honestly, it really sounds like the joke good ending for a game that has like 4 different endings. And don't you dare call it a polycule. I've seen the stupid shit people say on Twitter. This is not a polycule, it's a reverse harem. Anyways, if you didn't know, I covered this series when I first launched my channel, up to the part where Aspen bumped into Cleary in the beginning. You can't see it now because I've hidden the video. I then covered it again in May 2024, where it was only up to part 1, right where Aspen got sent back to the future. At that time, I didn't have the right kind of editing for the video, so now that I know how I want to do things, I felt it was a good time to revisit it again, since the series has been done for a little bit now. It was my first shoujo manhwa, so it felt nice rereading the beginning. Not so nice re-recording hours of audio though. I think part 1 is pretty strong, especially for manhwa. The writing is good enough, but what really stands out is the art style. The panels are filled with color. It's like every part of the beginning is baked with the shoujo style. It's extremely flowery, cute, and pretty. The addition of making the beasts fluffy little creatures really adds to the aesthetic. There's definitely magical girl inspiration, the biggest coming to mind being Cardcaptor, because of Aspen's fusion transformations in part 1. But also, of course, the typical Manhwa flavor of Victorian living, which, you know, features a world under the rule of an imperial family, one of the male leads being a duke, and Aspen ended up living as a marquis's daughter, etc, etc. Almost everything in part 1 flowed well, and built up in a sensible way, but part 2 is where I think it falls off. This manhwa is titled Trust Me, Little Duke, so it's sensible with that, plus how part 1 leaned more onto Senok's backstory, that he would be the sole male lead. But no, they had to give the pull the plug, low sales ending that included Cade as well. And don't get me wrong, I like Cade too. I just feel like in part 2, he was being shoved in while Senok was being pulled out to try to make it make sense that Aspen would have them both. My gripe is that for some reason, Aspen always seemed to be needing saving, like when she was going to get shot by Sherman and when Kana was about to finish her. I don't think those moments were legitimate. By all accounts, with Aspen's raw abilities, like what she demonstrated in part 1, plus the powers of the beasts, there shouldn't have been any reason for her to have been in real danger in those moments. And oh my god, the part where they're at the last temple and she's like, "Let me get captured," and they just take her peacefully, like, come on. Other gripes include, what happened to Senok's dad? Why is most of Cade's interaction with his master off screen? Did the author just completely forget about Zack and the White Bird Troop? She kinda hinted Aspen would see him again in the beginning, but did nothing with it. I don't blame the artist for this. Their work was fantastic. The writer, however, was clearly constrained either by brain damage or low chapter sales. I really loved the art. It is the embodiment of what the shoujo style is supposed to be. But there was no reason the story had to end this way. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Were you Team Senok or Team Cade? I read comments on the site I was reading on, so I'm sure there are fangirls of Senok's father and Cleary as well. Subscribe for more content. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.